Mrs. Weiss, all in favor? 5-0. Before we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I was just asked that everybody stay standing for a moment of silence for an Elwood person that was very dedicated. Mr. Sidney Finkelstein passed away on March 18th. He was 95 years old. He was an Elwood board member, got voted in 1967, served 12 years on the Elwood Board of Education, and then later went to Western Suffolk BOCES in 1979 and served there until his death. Mr. Finkelstein is survived by his wife, Gloria, daughters Jill and Kathy, and was predeceased by their daughter Nancy. So a man who really dedicated his life to education. So if we can just stay standing after the pledge. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of February 7th? Mrs. Mamalita, second by Mrs. Weiss, all in favor? 5-0. Can I please have a motion to approve the meeting of the minutes March 7th? Mrs. Weiss, second by Mr. Tomio, all in favor? 5-0. We have some wonderful students from John Glenn High School that are going to be commended this evening, and I'll let Dr. Bosser take over.
And I will quickly pass the baton. First of all, thank you all for being here tonight. It's great to see so many people come out for our public discussion. And one of the highlights of doing so tonight is we have some outstanding students as well as staff to recognize and to assist us with doing that. I'd like to first call upon our high school principal, Mrs. Brzezinski.
Good evening, everyone. There are so many exciting things going on at John Glenn High School, both inside and outside of the classroom. The faculty and staff at John Glenn High School dedicate a tremendous amount of time outside of the classroom working with our students in co-curricular settings, and as a result, our students are achieving great success. So tonight I get to highlight the efforts of two incredible advisors and the students with whom they work. First, our Medical Marvels. For those of you who do not know, our Medical Marvels is led by our advisor, Dr. Kamai. Medical Marvels is an annual competition held by the Northwell Feinstein Research Institute at North Shore Hospital in Manhasset. Each year, the competition requires students to conduct in-depth research and create solutions for current issues affecting schools and students. This year's competition, which centered on vaping epidemics in schools, drew nearly 40 teams, each of whom submitted a 14-page proposal paper and presentation on their solutions to this important topic. The John Glenn team met together weekly for 5 months to work on the paper, presentation, and poster, all of which were judged by distinguished and accomplished professionals within the medical community. This demonstrated a true collaborative effort in which all 6 of their ideas were displayed. Their paper described a 5-step plan designed to tackle the vaping epidemic in high schools through a combined effort of scientific research and targeted education embedded in high school curricula. Thank you so much to Dr. Kamai for the hours that he spent working with our students, as well as Mr. Chesnoff and Mr. Greening for assisting the students with their paper and helping the students to develop strong presentation skills through the AP Capstone program, in which 5 of the 6 students participate. So as I call your name, please join me as we offer you a commendation on a job well done. Brennan Finnegan. You can join me, Brennan. Jake Haddad. Sasha Jamal. Devin Lee. Julia Mady Agria. And Rithika Narayan. And of course, their wonderful advisor, Dr. Kawai. Congratulations, everyone. The next group of students that I would like to highlight for you this evening are members of the Elwood John Glenn High School mock trial team under the leadership of their advisor, Ms. Megan Geiser. Our mock trial program supports our high school students in the edification of the law, court procedures, and our legal system, and provides them the opportunity to enhance their analytical, listening, and speaking skills. Our students prepare and act for all roles, including court clerks, researchers, witnesses, and attorneys. Hypothetical cases are created by the Suffolk County Bar Association and New York State Bar Association. Members of both the NISBA and the Suffolk County Bar Association serve as attorney coaches and judges, sharing their legal expertise with students in the mock trial program and testing student skills as lawyers and witnesses in a simulated courtroom competitions. For the last 3 years, the John Glenn High School mock trial team, also known as Night Court, has been on the rise. In 2017, the team finished the preliminary season ranked 6th out of 27 schools and made it to the Suffolk County Final Four for the first time in school history. In 2018, the team was ranked number 1 at the beginning of the season for the first time ever. In that year, the team again finished the season ranked 6th and returned to the Final Four for the second year in a row. This year, our team once again set a new mark for excellence. After starting the season as the number 1 team in the county, the team went 4-0 in the preliminary rounds and held on to number 1 ranking the entire season. After 5 weeks at number 1, they entered the Sweet 16 and succeeded to the Elite 8 as the top seed in the county. While they did not make it to the Final Four after last night's stiff competition, we are so proud of what they have accomplished. The rapid rise of the program came under the leadership of Ms. Geiser, who has made the Sweet 16 in each of her 4 years at the helm of the program. She has shared with me that the mock trial students are the hardest working children at Glenn. They practice several hours a week, most times after their other activities have ended, during school breaks and on weekends, and you will often find them in the high school or at the Elwood Public Library honing their advocacy skills, even over a break. So I would really like to acknowledge all of your hard work. I would also like to thank Mr. Anthony Marino, our attorney coach, for his efforts to assist and support the team. As I call your name, please join us as we offer you a commendation for a job well done. So we'll start with our 9th graders. Isabella Marino. Jack Resnick. Abby Rothleader. Caitlin Schiebel could not attend, so Isabel Silvestri. Max Lesniski. These are our 9th graders, so we look forward to your future success. Our 10th graders, Christopher Adeo, Natalie Catalan, Alex Chestnut, David Garcia, Juliana Weber, we look forward to your continued success. On to our juniors, Luke Breyer, who could not attend, Danielle Gross, Hannah Kleiman, Matthew McNerney, Tristan Morlock, Katie Yaskowitz, again, please continue next year to support it, to represent us well. And for our seniors, Megan St. Oveen, Jenna Barth, Allison Flanagan, Katie Ladowitz, another 10, Ariana Mintz, Zachary Stickelman, and Jackie Young. And of course, none of this could be possible without the lovely advisor, Miss Geyser. Did Mr. Marino join us?
Have you guys all just step on really quickly?
Mr. Marino.
So as I see some of the students leaving to study, I'm sure, I just want to say congratulations. It's such a pleasure to commend such talented, bright students and their advisors. You all really put Elwood on the map with both clubs, and we appreciate all your hard work and dedication. Thank you.
While we are very happy to celebrate our students, we also have occasion tonight to celebrate two outstanding members of our faculty and staff. And to assist us with doing so, I'd like to call upon our middle school principal, Dr. Sapienza.
Thank you. I would like to thank the Board of Education for giving us the opportunity to recognize two really fantastic members of the Elwood Middle School staff. A few weeks ago, I experienced what can be a principal's worst fears. One of our students who were entrusted in our care was experiencing a true medical emergency. I was at central office when I received word of what was transpiring in the nurse's office. When I arrived there, what I came upon looked like a perfectly orchestrated response team. I watched first through the lens of the principal, but then through the lens of a mother, and then through the lens of a human being. And I was moved to almost tears with pride and gratitude of the actions of Ms. Valley, our assistant principal, and Mrs. McNamara, our school nurse. Mrs. McNamara was administering life-saving medication, not once, but twice, while calling an ambulance, calling the child's parents, notifying the main office, all while constantly assessing the student's vitals and responses to the medication. Mrs. Valley was in full mothering mode. Mrs. Valley held the child in her arms, comforted her, told her that she was going to be okay, and nurtured the student as if it was her own child. She wiped her tears and rubbed her back and consoled a terrified young person. As I watched the situation unfold, I thought to myself what an honor it is to work alongside two professionals who treat children with love, dignity, and support, the same that they would give their own children. Elwood is lucky to have these two women caring for, protecting, and loving the students of our middle school, and I'm grateful to call them my friends and colleagues. So Mrs. Valley and Mrs. McNamara, can you please join us?
Before I sit down, I'll just add that the counseling services to those individuals provided by Dr. Sapienza that day was also outstanding. It really is. It was a rare occasion to see, the team jump into action in what could have been a very critical situation. And the way it was handled, the way it was addressed, I think makes us all feel very comfortable that those that we have in leadership positions. So thank you both very much.
It's a comfort to know that everyone stayed calm and did exactly as they were trained, so congratulations and thank you. Next we're going to call up Annie Song, a liaison to the board, to give us the highlights of what's going on at the high school. Annie.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to wish you all a happy spring, although it doesn't feel very much like it. I'm happy to be here again, sharing all the exciting things happening across the district since last time I saw you. Last month at Harley Avenue, the students in Mrs. Chris Warren's art class explored different art styles and cultures. The students learned about the Chinese Lunar New Year by learning to paint good fortune in Chinese characters, and they celebrated the 100th day of school by creating art from 100 squares while mimicking a popular art form used in the city to represent streets. Boyd has been buzzing with excitement as well. James H. Boyd student David Federin is headed to the American Ninja Warrior Junior semifinals. We wish him the best of luck, and we can't wait to watch him climb his way to the top. The Student Council at Boyd has been working hard to help save the planet with one conscious decision at a time. The Student Council members have been instrumental in encouraging students to be more mindful of what they may toss in the trash, and they also collect and weigh bins of paper and plastic recyclables. The recycling program at Boyd would not be possible without the hardworking students. The district came together to celebrate cultures from around the world at International Night. In addition to the delicious, authentic cuisine served by the Glen students, different groups showcased well-practiced performances, including the Boyd 4th and 5th grade chorus, the EMS 6th grade world culture classes, Melissa Mandel, Ms. Conjoin's Spanish conversational class, the STEP team. As finale, students from all ASL levels performed a rendition of This Is Us, accompanied by a very talented Princess Oñata, and brought the audience to their feet. Additionally, World Language Honor Society students attended the annual field trip to Boyd on the 15th to teach classes a few basics in the language that they studied. As usual, the past few weeks at the high school have been packed with excitement. On March 1st, progress reports were uploaded to the portal. And with winter sports coming to an official close with the Winter Athletics Award ceremony on the 5th, spring sports began on the 4th. On the 6th, John Glenn held another blood drive in the gymnasium, and eligible students generously donated their time and blood to help save a life. Additionally, students part of the Habitat for Humanity Club put their hands to work at Mastic Beach and Bayshore to restore homes. Another exciting annual event is Volleyball-a-thon. Thanks to the generosity from both players and spectators, we were able to raise $3,900, which will be split evenly between the Sean Erda Memorial Fund, the Chris Raguso Memorial Fund, and the medical missions to Nepal. The team that took the winning title for 2019 was Tolinis. Our talented music students, Asaya Bell, Lauren Houlihan, Devin Lee, Shayna Puro, Anson Kwan, Benjamin Lagrego, Aiden McNamara, Caitlin Schiebel, Blake Garing, Ryan Kang, Rithika Narayan, Maya Tallow, and Juliana Weber had their Skamia Music Festival concert on the 8th and on the 10th. Speaking of musical talent, this year's musical, Hairspray, wowed the entire community with an amazing performance. They performed on the 13th for senior citizens of the community and stunned crowds this past weekend. Everyone involved in the play, from the cast, stage crew, and pit, truly made the musical unforgettable, and we commend them for all the hard work and dedication that went into making such an entertaining performance. The Potsdam Pitches, an award-winning co-ed a cappella group from SUNY Potsdam, visited the high school to work with our amazing a cappella group, Acapelwood. Their voices filled the auditorium during their performance for the 8th period music classes. It was amazing to see our students both engaged and excited to watch higher level performances. In conjunction to the PTA's Disabilities Awareness Week, Latin Battle James Arrigo came to the high school to share the power of overcoming adversity, never giving up, and living purposefully through service to others. I've had the honor of watching him at the Compassion Without Borders conference this past winter, and I can honestly say that his innovative programs are persevering legacies and stressing the importance of living a meaningful life. As always, we have many individuals to recognize and commend this month. Last month's Noble Night knighted Ms. Shannon Cheddick, a wonderful and dedicated special education teacher. I'd also like to echo Ms. Brzezinski and congratulate the mock trial team for winning 2 meets on their way to county champions. Although they may not be competing at the county championships, our team still stole a quarterfinalist title. Ms. Pye and our hardworking equine team went to the NDA competition and have dazzled their way into finals for the first time at the competition in Florida. Independent science research students won first place at Northville Medical Marvels for their 14-page proposal on how to deal with the vaping crisis. They competed against 30 schools across Nassau and Suffolk County, and in addition won $1,000 as a group for the win. Congratulations to sophomores Sasha Jamal, Julia Maddie Aguiar, Devin Lee, Rithika Narayan, Brennan Finnegan, and Jake Haddad. I'd also like to recognize Rithika Narayan, who recently competed in the second round of the Long Island Science Engineering Fair and is awarded honorable mention and best used for international metric units. We can't wait to see her accomplishments in the next 2 years. The new members of the National Honor Society were inducted on Tuesday. These new members have worked diligently both in and outside the classroom to receive this distinction, and we know that their futures are bright. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope everyone enjoys a restful spring break filled with family and friends. I look forward to reporting once again in April.
Thank you, Annie. to Dr. Bossert. I believe there's a couple of people in the audience that were also honored this week.
We were very pleased to be invited to participate in the SCOPE Shining Stars Award program on Monday. SCOPE is a Suffolk County organization for the promotion of education. It's actually a now Long Island-wide initiative with districts that participate throughout Nassau and Suffolk counties. And each year they hold an awards dinner that gives local districts the opportunity to recognize some outstanding members of the team. Those individuals who go above and beyond, making contributions within the district that touch the lives of our students each day. It just so happens that some of our honorees are with us this evening. There are 4 different categories in which individuals can be selected for nomination, and we were fortunate to have 4 award winners identified. From the administration, Zylene Kelly-Gorman was selected for her leadership. She's not here this evening, but she joined us on Monday night. From the teaching staff, Ms. Fran Lane, who is retiring at the end of the year after many, many years of service to our primary students, was there with her family on Monday, and we were very happy to celebrate with her. And our 2 other award winners are present this evening. Miss Maria Colorasi received the support staff. And may or may not have mentioned it being one of the highlights of a 32-year career. Is that correct, Maria? And we were so happy you were able to join us. And from the community service category, an individual who does so much for our students in her position of leadership amongst the PTA and the PTSA, Ms. Emily Porter, was honored on Monday. And a good time was had by all. 825 of their closest friends showed up for the recognition, and it really was a fun night. And I was happy to share that recognition with them, as it was all 4 of our award winners are greatly deserved. So congratulations to the 2 that are present, and we look forward to celebrating again next year. And as we have a lot of other discussions to have tonight, I will keep my report to that, and we can move forward in the agenda.
Okay, we're up to our first resident remarks. The board encourages all residents to attend its meetings, and this section of the agenda affords them the opportunity to speak. Persons wishing to speak should identify themselves and any organizations they represent. Comments related to district business or agenda items should be kept as brief as possible and may not exceed 3 minutes. Questions or comments concerning matters which are not on the agenda will be taken under consideration and may be discontinued by the president. Public discussion of matters relating to staff, students, or others at which their reputations, privacy, or right to due process could in some way be violated is prohibited. Just so you know, we will have some questions after the budget presentation, a brief period where folks can ask questions about the budget presentation. So if you have questions about that, you may want to wait till after the presentation, but otherwise it's open for resident remarks the first. Agapi, come to the microphone, please, so the camera can hear you.
Good evening. I timed this. It's only a minute and a half. My comments pertain to the discussion ahead. Good evening. I am speaking tonight as a parent and a taxpayer and not representing any group that I may be a member of or leader of. That being said, my standing as a payer who funds the company we know as our school district should hold as much value alone as it would with the group. As I prepared for tonight, it did occur to me that our district is a company. Its business is educating the children of Elwood and preparing them for further education and careers. That is the business of this district. The schools are not a warehouse, a holding place, or a place of safekeeping for the day. The purpose is to educate the students. The focus of any trimming to the budget, which I understand has to happen, should be in areas that do not enhance or push forward directly the education of the children. Those somewhat superfluous or times of plenty items should be trimmed, leaving the classroom as is. For example, printing and mailing out the school calendar to every resident should be the first item deleted from next year's budget. Then departments that do not directly impact education should be trimmed of potential redundancies. But eliminating teachers, resulting in larger class sizes, or attempting to make changes detrimental to the AP classes, to me, is an untouchable arena. They are already large, the classes. Most studies that I have read, all the correlation that deal with correlations between class size and performance outcomes define large as 23 students, not 28 to 32, as we've had this discussion many times with many of you. I haven't seen 23, so I know some sections have it, but I haven't seen it. And 28 to 32 is not large, it's extraordinary. So what I consider this company, Elwood Union Free School District, is here to educate the kids. And I believe that nothing that would hurt that mission of education should be done when making cuts. Cut everywhere else that you can, and revisit those enhancements that were made in non-direct education areas when we have money again. And my children would like to say, please don't touch the art and music classes. And my daughter said that art keeps me sane. So please don't touch those areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bell.
Mrs. Bell, and just anyone else who intends to participate in public comment, I might ask you to save questions and remarks about the budget till after we present where those reductions are being proposed, because I think it'll allay a lot of the concerns that you just expressed.
Okay. We're up to our presentations.
Okay. We have two presentations to prepared for the board and community tonight. The first of which is an overview of our K-12 guidance program. We've had a number of individuals work very diligently for the last several weeks to prepare this overview to give both the board and the community some additional insights into all the valuable work that goes into our guidance program and some of the modifications and wonderful additions we've seen to it over the last few months of this school year. I am very pleased that each member of our guidance team is present tonight, along with our building leaders. It's really wonderful to see you come to participate in the presentation and support one another. This team is one that is greatly valued, one that has a profoundly positive impact on our students each day, and I am very anxious for you to share the great work that you've been doing with the board and the community. So to begin that presentation, I believe Mrs. Hull will take the wheel. Dr. Hull, my apologies.
Good evening. Thank you to the Board of Education for this opportunity to discuss the Elwood Guidance Program and the development of a new comprehensive school counseling plan. And I would also echo Dr. Bossert in thanking our guidance team for being here and so many of our administrators at the building level who play such a key role in guidance. So I'd just like to invite our counselors to maybe come closer in case you're presenting. We have with us Ms. Polina, who is also our lead counselor, Ms. Dobra, Mrs. Nasser, Ms. Sally. From the middle school, we have Mr. Schwartz and Ms. Lederer, and Mrs. Brzezinski, our high school principal, and Dr. Sapienza, our middle school principal, will be joining me this evening and sharing information about our program. The responsibilities and functions of guidance are vast. They range from addressing the needs of an individual student to scheduling the entire academic program of every child in grades 6 through 12. And there really are many facets of the program that we could discuss this evening. But we hope to summarize the essential role of counselors and answer questions you may have about some of the major responsibilities that they engage in. I know that we have some of our assistant principals here, Ms. Val, Mr. Cole. They also play a key role along with Mr. McNamara and our directors because the role of guidance is so vast, and the creation of the schedule that drives all of the programs involves many stakeholders. So the message I'd like to share with you is that the guidance department of yesterday has evolved, and really now it's the central hub of a student-centered service organization. The American Association of School Counselors describes it this way, and I'd like to share with you their words. Gone are the days of school counselors sitting in their office handing out college applications, making schedule changes for students who want to drop a class, or waiting for a crisis to occur. Today's school counselors are vital members of the education team. They help all students in the areas of academic achievement, career, and social emotional development, and they ensure that today's students become the productive, well-adjusted adults of tomorrow. And I'd like to add to that the most significant part of a counselor's role today is the contact that they have with our students on a daily basis and the communication that they foster with faculty and with parents. The shift in the role of the counselor has really been highlighted by the New York State Education Department in a grand change to the types of regulations that they have released in the role of the counselor and in the responsibilities in the school. And every school district must complete a comprehensive school counseling plan by July 1st. And that will cover not only what the role of the counselor is, but the standards that they will be aligned to and the types of curriculum that our counselors will be involved in delivering to students. Pictured here are students at a fall college fair day, one of the enhancements that were added to our college preparation experience at John Glenn. And of course, we also get to see our team of counselors just from one of the several events that they have attended together, from some of our evening events for parents. For example, in the fall, when we had one of our high school events for college preparation, it was wonderful to see our middle school counselors there with our full team, and together they help represent the 612 journey for our students. So within this new framework, what does a school counselor do? We know in our Elwood School District mission that providing an excellent educational experience that empowers and inspires each student to succeed academically, socially, and emotionally in an evolving global society is our mission. Our school counselors are really an important part of that because they support the whole child. And they do that by seeing each student as an individual with unique needs. And they also support their academic journey through the district. So this evening, we are going to highlight some of the enhancements that have evolved in the last few years, which have allowed our counselors to have more contact time, and which is essential to some of the responsibilities that lead to that. The principals and school counselors will give us an overview, and I'd like to invite Dr. Sapienza to talk to us about the middle school program.
Good evening again. I'm so proud to be here tonight to celebrate and highlight the great work that is happening in our Middle School Counseling Center. The Counseling Center is comprised of our two school counselors, Ms. Lederer and Mr. Schwartz, who are here with us tonight, our school psychologist, Mrs. Meir, and our school social worker, Mrs. De Jesus, along with our clerical, Mrs. Dubois. When I arrived to Elwood Middle School, the passion, love, and dedication that they all have for our students, staff, and community has been inspiring. They serve our school community with one goal in mind, and that is to surround and support each one of our students. The middle school years, as we know, are filled with many changes and transitions that our students need to navigate. They experience tremendous growth physically, cognitively, and emotionally. Our counseling center is instrumental in supporting our students' social, emotional, personal, and academic growth. Over the last year and a half, the Counseling Center continues on their path of excellence as they seek to continue to reflect on their practice, grow and evolve to meet the ever-changing needs of our students and their families. I'm so grateful to Mr. Schwartz and Ms. Lederer that they're here tonight, and I know they're very eager to share with you all of the wonderful work that they are engaged in.
Good evening. It's nice for me to come to a board meeting every couple years. I see kids that I haven't seen in a long time getting awards, and they're like 6'6" now. And I don't know if you've heard gospel. It's a really tall kid now. In any case, it reminds me why I love doing what I do. So first of all, I want to say good evening. I want to thank the board, the community, the administration, really, because you've definitely shown a commitment to me. I've been here since the 1990s, which sounds scary, probably. I guess, I don't know. Maria's been here longer, so she remembers when I got hired. Thank you for congratulations. But for me, seeing the addition of counselor, addition of a psychologist added, teaming in the middle school, I'm probably taking up this slide very quickly, has been a big piece of the journey that I've always wanted to see as a vision for our department. So, you know, the role of a counselor, and Ms. Hull, congratulations on getting 10. Just wanted to know. The role of the counselor, really, I use this term, and Ms. Brzezinski used it the other day, but I don't know if I coined it when it came out, but it's just kind of like, I'm stealing it from you guys, is that we are like the customer service representative in the school district. And the reason I say that is because in my years, somebody used to ask me, well, what does a school counselor do? Well, we kind of, it's like, I sometimes think, what haven't I done in 20-something years? And the reality is we handle all kinds of situations. You never really know what you're going to get some days. And we have to figure out a way to make it happen for the best interest of the kid. And how do we get that student to be successful both emotionally and socially? Because our belief as counselors is really you have to have a child be emotionally ready to learn before you can get to anything else. So that is our goal often and always. And when you look at our goals as a list, it really serves that. We serve the teachers, the parents, the administrators, the community, outside agencies we coordinate with to try to get kids to be in the best possible position to be successful as students. And that is really the goal I've had and all these guys, gals have had since they've started doing this, and pretty much everybody in education, but we really focus on social emotional learning. So what is different? I don't know if everything's really different. We are always trying to get better. There's not a time we've ever sat in our office over the time I've been here, Ms. Sally's been here, and with some of the new staff that we have, we've always tried to get better and look at better ways to help kids become more involved in the community, the students, etc. So when you look at the list of some roles and enhancements, here's some things that have really helped. For years, you know, maybe in 2009 or so, I tried to team the middle school, but we didn't have the staffing and the budget support to do it. And really what teaming provides in the middle school is access for us to teachers in a group where people can discuss right away what is going on with the student to come up with the best possible solution to help that kid. So in the past, to give you an idea of what my life was like prior to teaming, is I would have to go upstairs to Ms. Braxton's room at 205 and Mr. Chabolsi's room because they both had the same student, carry a message back and forth between them, try to create a picture, then somehow get together with them and get everybody's schedules together, which is much more difficult. Now I walk in a room, this is how it looks. Hey, we want to talk about it. Ms. Lederer has the same experience. We walk in a room now, and these teachers have already had active discussions. They come with plans. Hey, this worked in my class with this student. And now we're coming in a different kind of support role. So that change in itself, and I really thank the board and the community for making that happen, and I would love to see it stay, obviously, too. So that is definitely one of the changes that has helped us servicing students beyond belief. Other things that we want to highlight is bringing a 3-year change in kind of our council roles. Prior to this year, I had every student that ever went to Elwood because I had the entire 8th grade. So I had every student that, you know, assuming they started prior to high school. Now we've decided to split the role, so I'm going to have the same relationship, Ms. Lederer is going to have the same relationship, kind of like the high school staff has had for years, with the same parents and kids for 3 years. It helps with continuity, it helps with, you know, not me having to re-figure out what like the counselor had done before with the students. I kind of know the deal, I know the family, she knows the same things. That helps us definitely tremendously well as well. Another thing is, Ms. Lederer is going to take you through this with Dr. Sapienza and so is Ms. Polina, is Naviance. You know, it's something that's existed in the high school. Prior to this year, my involvement with was to write a college recommendation for kids I coached in high school, and anyway came down and asked me to input it. Now we're trying to get a career focus into it, which they're going to tell you more about, so I'm not going to steal their thunder with that. So caseloads, the teaming design, Naviance, obviously social emotional learning is, like I said, is the core of what we do. I definitely am a big proponent of it. Ms. Lederer did a thing this year with like hearts for Valentine's Day with a group of kids she was working with. We try to implement P.S. I Love You Day. A lot of the things that we've done are because students have come to us and said this is important to us. So Day of Silence is something you may have heard of or not have heard of, but you know, it's brought in, you know, we really didn't talk about LGBT community type stuff in the district for a very long time. It just wasn't covered. And the kids brought it in and it survived, and now we have a GSA in the high school, the GSA in the middle school, and it isn't just, you know, programs like that. It's just DASA Week, you know, Dignity for All Students Awareness Week. This week we have Disability Awareness Week. We had a mental health awareness day. We're trying to cover a lot of topics that affect, the kids in our lives. So that definitely is a big piece, and we'll continue to work to kind of come up with new things. P.S. I Love You Day was a new one this year. One of the kids in 7th grade, actually, it's Bell's son, came to me and said, hey, I have this thing, I heard about it, I was like, I don't know what it is, but he made it happen, and next thing the whole school dressed in purple. That's just the beginning of it, and that's how kids get things started, so that's great too. The other thing that we've always reworked and tried different things was the best way to coordinate between buildings. We are like the pivot point of the district a lot of times. I'm not sure you can take anything away from Boyd because they have the Harley Middle School thing, but we are the mix between primary and secondary education. So for us, we get kids when they're 4'11", and they leave us when they're 6'2". And there's also a lot that goes on. They go from a period where they're really, everybody tells them what to do, to a period where they don't want to be told what to do, and they do a lot of self-reflection about how they fit into the world. So our transition, and this is part of the team that's great, is this year the counselors came over, and they've come over in the past to speak to the grade, but this year we had them come over and speak to the teams of 8th grade teachers, because we wanted the teachers to really get an idea, like, even though we have open enrollment in our district, it gives obviously parents and kids a lot of power to make decisions. It's also a scary thing for parents because you have the power to make that decision. But the person that works with your kid every day is that teacher. The child every day is your teacher. So the counselors are kind enough to go through the difference between honors and regents classes and kind of what is the build colleges are looking for kids. So when they're making recommendations, it's a more informed decision. And those recommendations, again, were made in groups this year, so that's going to make it better for my constituents at the high school and their teachers. So that was a nice thing we did. We also started to take groups of kids over to Boyd last year to meet with current 6th graders, to meet with the 5th grade and kind of tell about their lives and what it's like. And then those same kids came in the summer during orientation to be like the orientation leaders for those kids. Also, the high school's kind of done the same thing. They have a freshman buddies program Ms. Nasser put together a couple years ago, where they come over to the middle school and then they work with our kids when our kids get there. So there's a nice kind of transition that's occurring between buildings. There's a lot of articulation. I just went to, because I didn't have 6th grade before, I just went to a CSE meeting for down at Boyd, so I'm meeting those parents. Ironically, I walked in and one of the parents, I had her as a student here, and I was like, oh my God, you're a parent, I can't believe it. Because I'm at that age, I guess. But in any case, our program is robust. And like I said, we could put 55 slides up here of the things we do. I would encourage you to check out the middle school website. We have lots of pictures. It's very pretty. You can see all the cool stuff we do. But with that, I'm going to turn over to Ms. Brzezinski, who's going to cover the high school piece.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you, the Board of Education, the wonderful enhancements that have taken place at John Glenn High School over the past 5 years. Like Dr. Sapienza, I'm excited to highlight and celebrate the great work that has taken place in the Counseling Center. Our Counseling Center at John Glenn High School is comprised of 4 fabulous counselors, beginning with our most veteran, seasoned, compassionate counselor, Ms. Lisa Sally, moving on to our lead counselor, Ms. Paulina, and Ms. Nasser, who both come to us with very deep, rich expertise working in other school districts, and our newest counselor to join our team, Ms. Christiana Dobra. Also to assist is Ms. Ann Cosme and Ms. Jan Fairchild. Together, these folks really work to support our children. Over the past 5 years, our counseling department has focused on providing a more customized experience for each student and family. We have been fortunate to be able to have hired these highly skilled individuals who are so compassionate and have worked alongside Ms. Sally and the administrative team to carry out the vision of the Elwood School District. In concert with administration, each of these individuals know that its primary goal is to educate and support the whole child. As Dr. Holm mentioned, the transformation in the guidance department from just holding on to an academic transcript to figuring out who are these children as individuals and how can they best support them. So if you can just go back for a moment, I would like to, this site here would take you to our John Glenn High School counseling website, and I would just like to take this opportunity to thank our lead counselor, Ms. Polina, for her efforts to update and maintain the counseling website, which is constantly being updated with important information for our students and families. Are we able to click on it? No? Okay, so on your free time. But if you can go back right there, as you can see in our mission statement, our counselors recognize that it takes a village to raise a child. We cannot do what we do in a silo. They work collaboratively with all stakeholders, teachers, administrators, parents, to ensure that each child's social, emotional, and academic development is attended to throughout their high school years. They assist the students with adjustment to the high school. So from the time that they arrive, they are dedicated to making sure that they have a seamless transition. Our counselors this year, through the articulation between myself and Dr. Sapienza, were able to go over and meet with the team of teachers to get a good sense of who are these students that are coming up to the high school. Once they are here, they assist them with management and study skills, career exploration, fulfilling their graduation requirements, and preparing them ultimately for post-secondary success. As Mr. Schwartz mentioned, 55 slides could go up because their responsibilities are voluminous, and it is no wonder that they are referred to as the customer service representatives, and really our counselors are the heart of our building. I would like to thank them again, Ms. Dobra, Ms. Nasser, Ms. Polina, Ms. Sally, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening. I truly am blessed to work with such a dedicated team each and every day. Next slide. As you can see, our counselors are very intentional in the manner in which they service each student and family over their 4 years at Glenn, always keeping in mind what is developmentally appropriate. I won't go through each bullet, but if you can see, they are very deliberate, grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, in how they service our students. Our counselors, while dedicated to the transition of the students into the high school, always begin with the end in mind, which really is a successful life beyond John Glenn High School. To accomplish this, of course, they begin with ensuring that our incoming 9th graders have a smooth transition to the high school. And as you can see here, they meet with our 9th graders in freshman seminar. And this year, our counselors work to create a 9th grade entry guide, where if you visit this PowerPoint presentation, you can click on this. This really is a resource for students and families to look at so that they can see if their child is checking off all the steps that they need to ensure a smooth transition to the high school. Additionally, each 9th grader has already met with their counselor to discuss their schedule for next year as part of the ongoing process of preparing our students for success in college and career. We are fortunate that the addition, with the support of our Board of Education and District Administration, that we were able to hire another school counselor, Ms. Dobra, who works to support our students with individual educational needs, and our lead counselor, Ms. Polina, who has really helped to streamline the process in the counseling department. This has resulted in our counseling department as a whole, which I should also mention Ms. Joanna Sepp, Ms. Dylan Kilkenny, and Ms. Kristen Karch, who also work in concert with the counseling, with the school counselors and district administration to service our students. But these additions have allowed our counselors to increase their contact time with students and afford them the opportunity to meet with each child at least once a year. And I am confident and certain that they are meeting with them on a more regular basis. Our counselors are now able to meet with our sophomore, junior, and seniors throughout their year to track their progress, again, to guide them accordingly as they plan for their individual post-secondary future. One of the ways that we help to track our students' progress toward their post-secondary goals is through the use of a very robust program called Naviance. In a few minutes, our lead counselor, Ms. Polina, will discuss how we're utilizing this program at the high school. But before that, we're really excited to know that the middle school has begun to use this powerful tool. And here to discuss how it's being rolled out in the middle school is my colleague, again, Dr. Sapienza. So thank you.
As Mrs. Brzezinski said, we are really excited at the middle school, and we had talked a little bit about this last spring, about our desire to bring Naviance to our middle school students. Naviance is a comprehensive college and career readiness tool that helps districts and students align their strengths and interests to post-secondary goals, improving student outcomes, and connecting learning to life and passion. This school year at the middle school, we have been planning our full school rollout. We have identified implementation goals and have engaged in vertical articulation with the high school, as in previous years, students' first access to Naviance was 9th grade. This year, our goal is for all of our students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, to get their login information, engage in a few interest surveys, and explore a very exciting feature called Roadtrip Nation, which Ms. Lederer will show you in just a moment. I would like to highlight the curriculum features that are offered through Naviance, and we're going to take you quickly through the program to show you how we plan to take Naviance and use it in several of our middle school courses. In 6th grade, seminar and facts, we will be inserting some of the curriculum from Naviance. 7th grade, health, and in the 8th grade, facts program. What we found when meeting with the teachers is many of the topics covered in Naviance were overlapping and could really complement the work that was happening there. So we're just going to quickly highlight for you, when you click on the 6th grade lessons, students can have the opportunities to engage in lessons regarding self-confidence, defining their dreams, study plans, taking responsibilities, and using their strengths. So they're really able to, in middle school, start to get a sense of who they are, what they are interested in, and how to become most prepared for the years to follow. 7th grade has a few topics we just wanted to show you that will be infused in our health program. Listening to myself, what makes me unique, overcoming obstacles, again, very nicely complements the work that is happening in 7th grade health. And in 8th grade, our facts teachers were very excited as they looked through some of these lessons, because they felt, again, that it took the work they were doing to the next level while getting students comfortable with using Naviance well before the intricacies of the high school work. So looking at reimagining their success, their career path, their personal school support network, and most importantly, decision-making is a topic that was heavily focused on in facts. So these are just a few of the resources that our teachers are working on that we will be bringing to students next year using the Naviance accounts. Mrs. Lederer is now going to take you through a feature of Naviance that, as an adult, I enjoy, because you get to really go through something called Roadtrip Nation. So I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Lederer.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Sapienza. Mr. Schwartz and I are very excited to bring Naviance down to the middle school and kick off our students' career and college exploration and education. We had the opportunity to attend an all-day training and workshop for Naviance, and it was great because we were able to really delve into the program and the platform and see how its capabilities can really help and support our students explore who they are as learners and all the different careers and colleges out there. We've also been working with our colleagues up at the high school to really create a comprehensive 6 through 12 Naviance program. So our goal in the middle school for Naviance is to really help our students identify their passions and their interests and their strengths, and provide them with the information and resources on what's actually out there in the career world. So one feature of Naviance that we are focusing on during our rollout year is Roadtrip Nation, which we will be bringing up in a moment, which offers over 6,000 videos highlighting over 800 leaders in various roles, jobs, and careers, some of which include the race director from the Boston Marathon and CEOs from companies such as JetBlue, Starbucks, Netflix, and Spotify. So once students log on to Roadtrip Nation, log on to Naviance and then go to the Roadtrip Nation page. It is under the career tab. I'll give them a second to get it up. If you go to demo.
This went very smoothly at our last meeting, and I apologize for the delay. I know we have a robust agenda at the moment.
Sorry about that. So once students log on and are actually on, they can go to the Roadtrip Nation page under the Careers tab, and they can complete the What's Your Road activity, which identifies their areas of interest and passions. So as you watched Mr. Schwartz walk through this assessment, the students will first pick a foundation, so we can pick accomplishing goals, and then they pick 2 areas of interest, so we can pick business, and the next one can be entrepreneurship. So then the students' selections will identify career and job themes and the videos in their areas of interest and passion. If you notice at the bottom, it will say not connecting, wants to pick a new interest. So if students aren't finding videos that are appealing to them, or they get really excited and they want to look into different areas and different themes, then they can just click on the bottom, do it again, and it'll bring them back to step 1. So the great thing about these videos is it really opens the students' eyes to what's out there in the world of careers, and it makes them aware of jobs and roles that they may have not known even exist. The other great thing about these videos is the leaders do an awesome job at explaining their obstacles and their challenges that they had to overcome in order to be where they are today, and really celebrates their triumphs. This is a feature that we certainly are starting in the middle school. However, it's a common thread that even the high school will be using, so students will use this feature of Naviance every single year and multiple times a year, so they're given that time to really explore the videos and learn about all the different roles, jobs, and leaders. So overall, at the middle school, Naviance really provides our students with the opportunity for extensive self and career exploration, and gets the wheels turning in their middle school minds. And at this time, I would like to invite Ms. Polina to come up and share how Naviance is used at the high school.
Thank you. We are so excited that our students will have access to Naviance now, beginning in the middle school, and will come into the high school ready to engage in the platform further with us, and use it to further explore their career and college options and come up with their individual pathway. So this evening I would like to highlight just some of the features that we use at the high school. On the home page, you can see there's several tabs here that students have the option to work through. There's an option for them to view their profile under About Me, which will show them their PSAT scores, their SAT scores, and their ACT scores, as well as their GPA, which is updated each year. They also have access to a resume builder and surveys that change throughout high school as needed for counselors to gather information and tailor programs to each student's individual needs. Next, you see there's a college tab and a career tab. We're going to take a look at the careers, where you can see students have continued access to the Roadtrip Nation. There are career interest inventories, including the career interest profiler. In the career interest profiler, students will be asked a series of questions which will then link them with careers that would be a good fit for them based on their interests and their skills. Here you can see the matching careers that comes up for each student. The careers are sorted by the amount of preparation that would be needed to enter that field. And we can see on my career interest profiler, one of the careers that popped up is guidance and counseling services. So when we click on that career, you'll be able to see a basic overview. Yep, so when you open the career, you'll see a basic overview, and there are several tabs within that. That includes the typical tasks, the wages, and the required skills for that field. Students can also view related occupations and related majors to that field. When they click on a related major, it will then link them to colleges that offer that major. So they can take their career exploration a step further to see where they would need to go to study and achieve a career in that field. Next, if we go to the colleges tab, students have access to several search options here. They can look up a specific college, they can do an advanced college search or a super match where they enter specific criteria about what they're looking for in a college, and it will then give them a list of colleges that meet that criteria for them to do further research. Each college in the program has a profile page, which is really the best place for students in high school to be doing research, as these profile pages are geared towards prospective students and quickly give students answers to questions they commonly have at this point in their research. So you can see, again, there's several tabs at the top that students can click through for further information about that college or university. Basic overview information on the campus. Under the admissions tab, students can see the admissions history for other John Glenn high schools who applied to each college. So here you see the application history, the number of students who applied in the past 3 years, the number accepted, and the number that attend each college. Additionally, they see a scannogram here where they are plotted on the chart, and they can see how they compare to other students who applied to the college. You see the decisions, the checks are accepted students, the X's are denied students, so you can really gauge where you fall in comparison to other students from our own high school. So it's a great place for students to begin to gather their information. From here, they can save colleges to the list of schools that they're thinking about, which eventually will become the list of colleges they're applying to. On the list of colleges that they're applying to, it gives them an easy way to keep track of and maintain a list of schools. They can quickly view decision dates on deadlines. They can view application types, request letters of transcripts, of recommendation and transcripts through this platform. And they do, did we get a couple of this? Okay. And they also have the option to do a comparison where they can compare their GPA and test scores to other students from John Glenn who are admitted to each university. So they're really comparing themselves to other students coming out of Glenn and how they fared in the process. So again, it's a really great place that links them from the career exploration and research process straight to the college exploration, research, and application process. So we use it all throughout high school. All students and parents have their own unique access to this program. So if you need any help getting that set up, we would be happy to help you with that. And it's a great tool that we encourage students to use at home, and in school we use it both in classrooms and individually with our students throughout high school. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hall for information on the K-12 guidance plan.
Thank you, thank you for taking us through, and actually that is just some of the highlights of Naviance. It's a much deeper program, and the counselors would be happy to present more information on it at another time. So the next part that I just want to talk about briefly is the development of our, what's referred to as the guidance plan, but its official name is the Comprehensive Developmental School Counseling Guidance Program Plan, grades K through 12. This slide just lists some of the information from the State Education Department that guides the work. We are developing an actual plan, one for the district level and one for each building. In order to prepare for this, we had a staff developer come, a former director of guidance, worked with all of our administrators, all of our counselors, and PPS staff last summer. Ms. Polina has attended training throughout the year at Western BOCES, as I have also attended some of the training, and then we began to work here at the building level. The best way I would like to describe to you what this plan is about would be to give you this example. Right now, we run programs that we are targeting students' academic success. For example, Harley Avenue runs OSCAR. OSCAR is a remediation reading program that is a short-term boost for students. What this plan is asking school districts to do is to take that kind of work that you're doing, but now bring it to the perspective of a school counselor. So when a school counselor is looking at the success of OSCAR, they're not just looking at the guided reading levels, which, for example, we present to the board at other times. What the school counseling plan is asking us to do is to say, what are the social, emotional needs of students that may be interfering with their progress on their guided reading levels? So, for example, the counselor, Ms. Polina, serves as our lead counselor. She is required to be consulting with K through 5 as part of this new plan. Her perspective is, let's track attendance. So we're monitoring their guided reading levels, now let's monitor their attendance level. Another shift from the plan is that in the past, our data report would be, here's the progress of our students on their guided reading levels. We now have to measure that, report it out with attendance, and if we pick another program, for example, kindergarten orientation, what is the success of kindergarten orientation? That covers all the domains of the plan. It covers academic success, social and emotional support, and career and life readiness. So the plan is now going to require us to find a way to measure the success of that from a school counseling perspective. So the team met together, and in the case of Harley, we have our principal, Ms. Milan, our school psychologist, Ms. Sitko, our school social worker, Ms. Kretz, Ms. Polina representing the guidance view, myself, and there we looked at administering a survey. So we're going to send a survey to parents prior to kindergarten orientation, asking what kind of things they would like to have answered, and then at the end of kindergarten orientation, we'll be looking at how they received the information, was a successful plan. So there's a lot of change in terms of assessing what we're targeting to meet the 3 domains of the guidance plan. Another part of the guidance plan is something that we got out ahead of, which is every student has to meet with a guidance counselor in grades 6 through 12 every year. So that started last year when the high school implemented personal scheduling meetings for every child. And this year, all of our 6 through 8 are meeting with their counselors. This year, our high school, again, ahead of the plan, is tracking how many interactions they're having with students. They're collecting hard data on the number of meetings, which is why they're able to report out that depending on the role of the counselor, those meetings at this point in the year have met, each counselor has met with at least 450 meetings with students. So clearly there are students who come on a regular basis, some that perhaps they only saw them once. But part of that is all about assessing the effectiveness of what we're doing. So to do that, first of all, we need to align to our standards. These are the ASCA standards of mindset and behavior. So when we're looking at OSCAR, we're aligning it to standards. This is an example of the building plan under development, and it notes how the plan will be assessed to determine its effectiveness. And finally, the plan has to be aligned to the Every Student Succeeds Act, and the ESSA regulation is requiring that our guidance plan look at the whole child, and I just really want to be able to note how under Dr. Foster's guidance for all of our superintendent's conference days, attending to whole child needs has been a consistent part of our professional development. And attending to the social, emotional, and mental health needs has been a consistent part of our board guidance and the enhancements that we've added to our program. So in many ways, we have made good progress out in front of the plan, things like Sensory City, our Natural Helpers program, Unity with Diversity Club. So throughout the rest of this spring, we will be completing the building plans, completing the district plan. There has to be an advisory council. Our advisory council will be the district shared decision-making committee. The role of the advisory council is to assess the data that we collect and determine our progress on the guidance plan, and then prepare a report for the Board of Education. So going forward, at the end of each year, you will receive a report on the effectiveness of our comprehensive plan and how we're meeting our goals. And that brings us to the conclusion.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Hull. And thank you for the presentations from the guidance staff and the principals. Questions or comments from the board regarding the guidance presentation? Seeing none, sorry, Mrs. Marcus. Scrolling back.
So I'm very familiar with the Naviance, I should say, because I have older kids. I'm just excited that it's coming to the middle school, and I guess some clarification that I would just like is, will the child entering into the middle school be given the same ID that will carry with them throughout the entire, till they're a senior?
Yes.
Okay, and also, I know for myself as a parent, we can access Naviance, we can get our own password, and that will be open also to the middle school parents?
Yes,
okay.
We're going to begin with the student accounts, and that'll be part of the plan implementation.
Okay, and the final thing is, for the middle school students, will they have the opportunity, and pardon me if I didn't catch this, will they have the opportunity to have exposure to the entire Naviance, or are you going to restrict access to certain portions of it?
We're going to restrict certain portions and roll it out because one of the plan requirements also is the curriculum that our counselors teach, so they'll continue to go into freshman seminar and access students in other classes to introduce certain aspects of Naviance, because there's always a balance of creating excitement, creating self-awareness, but not creating overwhelm. So they really do carefully schedule a timeline for how to introduce different things.
Okay, great. The next questions that I have are on the John Glenn level, and where you had the schematic with each grade of what they do in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. I see that you have the one-on-one meetings and you're starting them in the 9th grade. How often will you be doing that?
There'll be at least one meeting each year to go over the scheduling selection process, reflect on the grades, and look at teacher recommendations. And then they continue to be open to meet student needs, and they are invited to come to the counseling center at all times. So, and then they will be teaching in classrooms, which is already going on, which is further contact time with students.
Okay, yeah, because I know, when you're a freshman, you're intimidated by the whole being in the high school and the counselors, and not that you guys are great, but but I just wanted to make sure that as a 9th grader coming in, a freshman coming in, that they have the opportunity to have intimate settings with the counselors so that they can build that rapport, because it is so critical at the high school level. Also at the middle school, but particularly at the high school as they move forward. So thank you.
I have questions about the high school guidance department. I did click around on the website, so I went to, what was my tab? Opportunities, student opportunities. So I clicked on that and I saw a variety of camps and special programs, things like that. My question is, do we just upload those opportunities onto the website and expect children to check it? Or do we reach out to some specific students that may have specific talents and say, this may be an opportunity for you?
For the student opportunities, some of them we do send out to specific students. We blast them out through Naviance if it's geared to a specific audience. So for example, today I sent out Women in Engineering, and it was open to all rising juniors and seniors that are female students enrolled in John Glenn. So I did target those students when it's very specific. We do send it out to students when we can target it. Same with the scholarship opportunities. Those get sent out to students directly as well.
Okay, great. And then I did want to ask too about how individual do we get with college counseling? Meaning, is there ever an opportunity for the guidance department or a specific counselor to meet with families to kind of get an idea of location, finances, expectations in those realms before we address the student directly?
If a parent approaches and requests a meeting, but often the student is part of it, the ones I've had the pleasure of sitting in on, it's a conversation with the student and the parent. But parents can always call, always email, and counselors are always available.
And then with the college consortium that's also on the website, are those colleges that solicit John Glenn High School, or do we solicit those colleges?
For the college consortium, we're part of a network of high schools in the surrounding area. and the colleges sign up for the consortium and are part of that rotation through the 12 high schools. There's 55 colleges that attend each one, and what we do to keep a variety of schools coming in is we only allow colleges to attend either the fall consortium or the spring each year. They can come to one or the other. This way we have a variety of colleges available for our students. And then additionally, we do have colleges come in the fall for small group or individual meetings with seniors and any underclassmen who are free at the time that the college comes in.
And do we offer anything for career-minded students? Do we offer a career fair similar to the college fair or no?
We do have Wilson Tech come in to present to students all of the different programs they offer, and then we take them on a trip to visit the Wilson Tech campuses and experience the program before they decide whether or not they want to apply.
Thanks.
Anything else? No. Sure.
I just want to thank you. I have a senior, my third one, and I love how you send out those emails about the scholarships. You just told them you're grounded if you don't do these scholarships. So it's so enlightening from the other two to kind of be exposed to that as a parent and be able to be communicated in that same level. And yeah, everything, the communication level. And again, my oldest is graduating college now, and between this one and I've just seen such amazing growth that I really do appreciate it as a parent. So thank you.
And before emails, Miss Sally's to track me down forward for those scholarships.
Which was only about 10 years ago.
That's it.
Has it been that long?
It has.
So, anything else? No? So I just want to thank you for the presentation. I love that the teaming has changed the middle school, that you can really get to know children from 6th grade, that you're following the same child and really getting to know the families. I think that's a tremendous progress in that area. I like that Naviance is coming down here because I remember Naviance being really stressful for kids if they hadn't used it before, and then in the high school it was so overwhelming because they felt like they were just going right into planning for college. The way it kind of eases in terms of their interests, their passions, their strengths, I think makes it less frightening and not so much a push to decide what you're doing for the rest of your life in college and all of that. It's more kind of a fun thing in the beginning, which is nice. I think that's great. I've seen also, I'm going to reiterate because my kids are older, the differences in the contact with the guidance department, I think is really making a difference, and it's appreciated. So thanks again. Okay. And now the budget workshop.
My appreciation to the guidance team and the building administration who came tonight to share that information with the board. It has been really a pleasure to watch the evolution of the guidance program, both at the middle school and the high school. I want to thank you all for your efforts, and I also want to thank the board for your support of the modifications made to the guidance program. As you know, this year's budget called for an increase in counselors, which allowed us to recruit Ms. Dobra and make some modifications to the way that guidance services are delivered at the high school, which has really been of benefit to the students in our program. So thank you to the board for your support, and thank you to our staff for making it work the way it was envisioned. We truly appreciate your efforts. And we know school starts at 7 o'clock, so if you choose to depart, go right ahead. With that, we will turn our attention to the budget, and I think Ms. Dunklin and I will be taking the board and committee through that discussion, so perhaps we shall shift over to the podium as well.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And, before we start the presentation, I just want to express my gratitude for everyone and their willingness to participate in this important process. This is our 4th budget workshop, budget update for 1920. What we know thus far. Thus far, our tax cap has been calculated and submitted to the state. It represents a 2.56% increase to the levy, which equates to $1.1 million in dollars, excuse me. State aid increase is 0.27%, which equates to $34,000. Total revenue is anticipated to be $62,669,185, and our total expenses at the initial budget process is roughly $64 million within a rollover budget, which is maintaining all of our current expenses and programs, which leaves us with a deficit of roughly $1.4 million. What we are doing about this deficit. Administration has been for months now continuing to review all the expenses to identify any potential areas for reduction. Administration, not only district administration, but speaking to all the directors, principals, assistant principals, everybody's putting their heads together to come up with creative ideas and take a look at where we may be able to save some money. Without any additional revenue expected to come into the district for 1920. No significant state aid is anticipated, and it's unlikely at this time. We must look to make adjustments to the expense side of the budget. Some of the items we're looking at are delaying potential enhancements to any programs, adjusting our purchasing timeline. What that really means is taking a look at our any major equipment expenses that we may have been anticipating and maybe possibly putting that off to a future school year. Same thing with materials and supplies, just kind of taking a look at what we're purchasing and what, at what time. Is it anything that we could potentially, put off for further years to come? Maximizing efficiencies. We're looking to do that by reducing and not eliminating any programs. As I just said, we're looking to minimize any impact to any of the programs and plan for long-term stabilization. Because as we build this 1920 budget, we also have to carefully consider what's going to happen in future years. Options we have regarding the deficit, Dr. Bachel's going to speak to. He has a lot more history in the district than I do, so I will leave it.
And candidly, many members of the community who are present tonight have a much more keen insight into the history of economics in the Elwood School District than I do. I have been very blessed that in the first 2 budgets I worked with the Board of Education to put together, we got to speak exclusively about enhancements and modifications that would be made to really maximize our program offerings to students. We had 2 years free from discussing grant size reductions, and we talked about enhancements. And in those years, we were really able to do some wonderful things within our schools, which we will continue to enjoy. This building moving to a 9-period day, expanding the number of AP offerings at the high school, expanding our counseling services, expanding our mental health services, have all been things we've really enjoyed bringing to the board and the community that were a reflection of having the economic flexibility to do that. We had hoped for that this year, and there were a number of initiatives that we had hoped to present to the board and the community if we had the financial wherewithal to do so. There are lots of wonderful ideas that we have of ways to continue to modify and enhance the program we offer to our students. Unfortunately, there are some that we have to keep on hold and pause until we have the financial flexibility to introduce them. So instead, what we are charged with is reviewing our existing budget. And as Ms. Dunkel said, if we were to keep everything we have in place in our current school year and just roll forward to next year and absorb all of the additional expenses associated with those programs and staffing, we would be short by approximately $1.4 million. So as Mrs. Bell stated in her opening remarks, our first order of business was to identify every area that we could potentially reduce that would not impact students. And fortunately, we were able to identify a number of those key areas that we were able to reduce that the students will never see the impact of. We may notice behind the scenes, we may not be exactly where we want to be in those areas, but for the students' experience in front of the teachers, things will not change. And we were able to identify several hundreds of thousands of dollars in those modifications. Our building leaders, our directors, did a great job sharpening the pencil, forgive the expression, of when we said this is not the year to look for certain issues. They were able to roll back the budgets under their control to help us make up for some of the deficits. And there may be fewer supplies, there may be fewer equipment purchases, there may be fewer technology enhancements than we would have liked to recommend. But this is a year where we have to tighten our belts a bit and make sure that we're focusing our economics on the priorities. So, where's my number? So when we look at the program, our K-12 program, we try to look at everything in its entirety. We don't want to look at any one issue in a vacuum and make an overabundance of reductions to any specific area to avoid those types of negative impacts. Our mantra has been reduce but not eliminate. Our mantra has been maximize our efficiencies because we have the intent to move forward with as minimal impact to our student experience as possible. So looking at equipment, looking at materials and supplies, looking at our textbook allocation, that was first order of business. One of the things that we have to our advantage is that with the Chromebook one-to-one initiative and having that system going in place through the junior year, will be 611, next year, we can really reduce the amount of money that we're spending on textbooks and consumable workbooks. And since there is a large budgetary allocation for those items, we were able to reduce it to a pretty good level without changing the student experience. What happened? Special education program reductions is difficult. The main driver of the increases to our budget were special education services, and that's only because our population needs are shifting. The expenses associated with meeting the needs of our special learners is shifting. A number of students that attend Elwood, that live in the Elwood School District cannot attend Elwood schools. Their needs exceed what we're able to offer them in regular classes here. So when we have to pay tuition to outside programs, it is an additional expense in our budget. And the number of students that we're able to educate here is the overwhelming percentage. But the students that we need to tuition to other programs to meet their needs have the highest expense. I don't mind sharing numbers, but we do have students whose tuition payments to meet their needs exceed $100,000 per child. And our population of students that have those type of high-cost programs is growing. So our budget is growing with them. That's okay. We need to make sure that we are meeting the needs of every child, no matter how profound their needs may be. But when we analyze where is the growth within our budget, part of it is making sure we're meeting the needs of every child who's a resident of Elwood. So we had to take a look at that. And we had to look at the ways that we were offering that program and make sure that the services we were providing them are in their best interest as well as what is most fiscally responsible. So we had to look at some things, and we took a good look at the summer program, and we've seen that the number of students participating in the summer program has decreased dramatically over the last number of years. And 5 years ago, when there was 40 and 50 students attending our 12-month program for special education students, it made sense to house it here. But when the number dipped to 12 last year, and perhaps maybe increased beyond that this year, it no longer made sense for us to create a program in-house for a small number of students, provide the transportation, provide the nursing service, provide the associated supports. So for these types of things, our students who require a 12-month program, we may look to tuition them to neighboring districts who have robust, larger programs for them to be able to attend. It is a change, but for the students, it certainly meets their needs. We also have to look and evaluate the manner in which we offer our support services. We need to make sure we're doing what's best for students, but we need to also make sure that we're making responsible decisions. So for instance, when we are creating schedules for speech pathologists and our PTs and OTs, we have to make sure we're doing it in a way that maximizes the efficiencies of each employee to make sure they can meet the IEP, but also keep their caseloads where we are really taking full advantage of their time within the district or coming into the district. Last year, the board was gracious enough to add a part-time human resources director. Human resources, for those not familiar, has never been a dedicated, or has not been a dedicated administrative position in the Elwood School District. So myself, Ms. Dunkel, Ms. Hull, we work very hard with our clerical staff to do all the functions necessary in what is a largely people-oriented business dealings within HR. The budget last year allowed for a part-time administrator. Mr. Coletti has been serving this year as our part-time director of human resources. He's been a wonderful addition to the team. The budget allowed for it this year. the recommended budget moving forward would maintain Mr. Coletti's position, but at a reduced level. He would be more part-time. And additional responsibilities within that office would fall to my desk, Dr. Hull, and Mrs. Duncan. Professional development is a very valuable and essential piece of what we do here in the school district to make sure our teachers and our support staff always have the training and support they need to continue to provide best practice to our students. It, however, has an associated expense. It has the expense of the conferences, the trainings, the facilitators that we bring in, that we send our teachers to, and it has associated expenses of substitutes when we are removing teachers or staff from their desk. So we had to take a look at that, and that part of our budget falls under Dr. Hall's discretion, and we asked her to simply roll it back. So we'll note some changes next year to the professional development offerings we're giving to our faculty and staff. We will send them to fewer events, and we will send fewer people to the events. We will look more to a model where 2 or 3 teachers may have attended a conference in the past, now 1 may go, and then we would ask that person to turnkey the information to the rest of their colleagues when they return. We feel we can continue to move forward, continue to support our teachers, and decrease expense at the same time. Dr. Hull also helps to coordinate some of the federal grants that we receive, and she was able to work some of the professional development opportunities into grant-sponsored initiatives rather than budget-sponsored initiatives. Class sizes is something we're going to look at in isolation. This is an important topic, and I know it's something the community looks at very closely. We compare ourselves to the region, we compare ourselves to the state, and we want to make sure that the student experience in Elwood is equal to or greater than those that are received in neighboring districts. Mrs. Bell referred to some research, I will as well. Class size is most essential in the primary grades when students are just entering our district, when just learning how to read, when just learning those class management skills. So our focus was to make sure that we maintain class size at the most manageable levels at Harley Avenue School. So when we took a look at the Harley breakdown, Dr. Hull will take you through it, and we kept our smallest classes there. In the intermediate grades, we kind of used the rule of thumb as 25. We really didn't want to go much above 25, at least in the class size average, and make a recommendation to the board that exceeded that. If you look district-wide at our class size averages are well below 25. That is because at the high school, in such a small high school, to create the flexibility to really assign students to all the courses they're interested in taking, particularly AP courses, very often we have to be extremely flexible with the size of classes that we run. We have AP classes running with 8 students. We have AP classes running with 10 students. We have difficult decisions to make when the master schedule is being developed at the secondary level. And I'm sorry that Mr. Cole has departed before I could give him my utmost compliments. Mr. Cole is an expert jigsaw puzzle completer. He has ways of making sure that the students receive all the different opportunities that they're looking for. In a small high school, where many of our courses run as singletons, which means there's only one of them, it's often difficult for students to match up with everything they're looking for. But the secondary administration does a spectacular job in helping students to gain access to the classes they're most looking for. And one of the things that results in that is to be competitive and to make sure we're offering these courses. We'll often run very small sections of higher level courses and support courses at the high school. But we looked at a K-12, and we'll take a closer look K-6 in just a few minutes. What options do we have? We have to review all of our co-curricular offerings. These are clubs, these are sports. We have to look at our athletic teams, our clubs, to make sure they are not undersubscribed, to make sure that the clubs we are running and facilitating, the advisors that we pay a stipend to, it substantiates by the number of students. So we have some clubs where the board has adopted the charter, where the club exists within the budget, but there's not enough students to actually run the club. And there are some that exist within our budget that don't actually have a population of students. So those we were looking to remove. Some of the clubs have been added recently and are running at a very robust number. So we looked at that very closely for both clubs and athletic offerings. Don't see, and I don't envision coming forward to the board with any reduction to athletic teams right now. Right now, all of the programs that we run are very well supported by our students. So at this time, there's no recommendation for any reductions to athletic teams, nor is there any recommendation for clubs at this time. We just have some that aren't running that will continue not to run. We do have to look at the most recent additions to the budget and decide whether or not we feel we're seeing the benefit that we thought we would have when we added it. We don't have a policy of last in, first out when it talks about building the budget. There was expense associated with moving the middle school to a 9-period day. It changed the full-time equivalent teachers that we needed. We needed about 3 more teachers to move the middle school to a 9-period day and make it work effectively. But it's working so effectively, and the experience has been so positive for our students, I could not, in good conscience, recommend to the board going back to the 8-period day and reducing those positions. So we are not working within a last in, first out model when evaluating the budget. And some of the modifications that we made that had associated expense, we will continue to support and recommend to the board. Looking at fund balance allocation, right now the budget, we have a $1.25 million fund balance allocation, which basically means, for a layman that might be in the audience, that we start with a deficit of $1.25 million every year. That was a significantly higher number just a few years ago, and the board and the administration has done a great job with careful spending and planning of getting that down to $1.25 million. That and keeping our unallocated fund balance at the state maximum of 4% has really helped change the financial position of the school district. We were recently audited by the New York State Comptroller's Office, and we were cited for nothing. They have deemed the district in good standing financially. They have deemed our financial and spending and oversight practice as exemplary. And the report card that will be released soon, so I can't speak to specifics, will be very impressive to the board and community. Our corrective action memo will read something like, keep up the good work, which is extraordinary for a school district after a 6-month evaluation by the comptroller. You've all opened Newsday, you've all read districts that have received less than glowing reports with the comptroller, and a lot of corrective action needs to take place. Ours, while I can't discuss the specifics, will be very positive. So we had to look at maintaining those levels to maintain our fiscal health. We don't want to look at this year's budget in isolation of, okay, what do we have to do to get through this year? We want to look at it a multi-year approach to make sure we maintain our fiscal health. So we're not recommending an increase to fund balance, and we're not recommending a decrease from the allowable 4%. We do, however, need to evaluate the use of our other reserves. We do have reserves in 4 categories, and there is an expense included in the budget to the employees' retirement system, the ERS. I never want to say the wrong thing, so it's good that Lorraine's right in my ear. We do want to look at the ERS reserves because that can decrease the money that we have to allocate for that line, and instead we'll use the reserves that are fully funded. And one of the things the comptroller's office recommends is to spend down some of your reserves. You are saving for a time when you have some financial challenges. This is a year where our aid increase of 0.27% has put us in an area where we need to look at spending down some of our reserves. So we are recommending including some use of our ERS reserve to offset budgetary expense. We must target reductions that will maintain the standard of excellence that the students of Elwood expect and deserve. Before we talk specifically about class size that I'm going to call Dr. Hull up to do, I do want to give you an idea of where some of the reductions came from, or all of the reductions came from, to add up to $1.4 million, as it were. There are some significant expenses that are associated with reducing our equipment, our supplies, our contractual items with BOCES, looking at reducing some professional development opportunities, some curriculum writing, including some things in grants. We were able to reduce some substitute allocations that we had made, because if we're reducing professional development, we're also reducing the number of substitutes that we'll need. We looked at shifting some supervision. We decreased the code for athletic supervision. Some of that is made up by using security more effectively and efficiently, so we're able to save some dollars there. There were some purchases that would have been great to be made in 1920, but we removed from the budget and hope to review them again in 20 and 21. We will make do. We looked at some tuition payments that we're making on a voluntary basis and able to scale them back a bit, which is without too much impact to our students or no impact to our students. And then there were some difficult personnel decisions that we need to make. There are some reductions within the budget that will impact personnel. As Ms. Dunkel has previously presented to the board, staffing and benefits, salary and benefits makes up approximately 75% of our budget. So for us to make up a $1.3 or $1.4 million budget deficit is very difficult to do without impacting staffing. So we had to make some difficult recommendations, and one of them is a reduction to the number of teacher assistants we have in our district. When we looked at the way our IEPs are written, and we wanted to make sure we had mandated services in place for children, we looked at some other positions that could be recalibrated and meet our IEP requirements and reduce the number of teacher assistants that we have. So part of the budget is a reduction of teacher assistants at Harley, Boyd, middle school, and high school. Each principal and directors look very closely at the TA positions, and we're able to identify 7 of those TA positions that are not required through special education, and the services can be provided by the existing staff. Some changes were just naturally by making changes to the program. For those in the community that are not aware, the board was informed by Dr. Sapienza that she was able to write the master schedule at the middle school in this building that will bring music into the instructional day. For many years, band and orchestra took place prior to the school day. Transportation had to be provided for parents. It became somewhat restricted to students who couldn't get that transportation. And now that's going to be part of the instructional day. As a result of that, it changes the course offerings during the day, the elective programs, where we give technology instruction, where we give family and consumer science instruction. So it changes some things. So because of that, music coming in, some other reductions were made. The exploration of world languages program in 6th grade will be replaced by the students in 6th grade receiving technology instruction rather than the world languages. So that had a net result of the reduction of a 0.6 of a world languages teacher. We made some reductions to the FTE. FTE is full-time equivalent, so a 1.0 FTE is a full-time teacher. So if we say a 0.5 FTE, that means half of a teacher's day. We were able to make some reductions to some of our part-timers in different areas because of the offset changes in our enrollment and the way that we're delivering our program. So when we talk about a 0.4 reduction in music in this building, the net result is that students who are part of our course, who receive vocal lessons, it's a little unusual at the middle school level. That's a very typical thing at the high school. Students at John Glenn who have vocal instruction receive weekly vocal lessons. At the middle school, it's a little unusual to provide that instruction. So again, keeping with our reduce but not eliminate, we were going to reduce vocal lessons from once a week to once every other week in combination with having chorus within their day. The way that we're giving AAS academic support services in math is shifting. We're able to use our existing staff rather than bringing in additional staff. So there we have a substantial reduction to a full-time staff member reduced by 0.7, but the instruction that the students will receive is exactly the same. They'll just be receiving it from different people. We had to look at the psychologist position. The K-12 psychologist was a wonderful addition to the budget, and we were very happy that the board supported the way we were addressing the mental health needs of our students. But as the year progressed, it became more and more clear that the role that was really deficient was not as much psychologist as it was social worker. The needs of our students really fell more under the blanket of social worker and what the needs would be. And for those that aren't familiar, and I'll remind the board, that each building does have a building psychologist, and this year we added a K-12 psychologist that split time between each of the buildings. But we only have 3 social workers. So we had to take a look at if it would be a better balance for the budget. So while it has no savings, we are making a recommendation to the board to shift that position, which would be the reduction of a K-12 psychologist, but the addition of a full-time social worker. So it doesn't change the ratio of PPS staff members we have to serve our children. It just changes the manner in which we will help to meet their needs in the best possible way. In addition to that, we have had the blessing of having 2 coordinators for special education work under Mrs. Wilkinson's direction. Next year, we're going to have to restructure those responsibilities a bit. The budget calls for the reduction of 1 of the 2 special ed coordinators. The other, instead of being K to 6, will expand the responsibilities to K-8, and the 9 to 12 responsibilities that the special ed coordinator will have to be delegated to other staff members, as the coordinator position is not recommended to continue in the budget. Another position that we were able to reduce is a special educator who is providing reading services outside of the classroom. At Boyd, we're able to provide those services in the classroom by restructuring the way we're giving our inclusion instruction in the intermediate grades. So rather than the students being pulled out by a special educator for reading, they'll actually stay with the teacher that's in their classroom present for reading instruction. So that again is a staffing reduction that doesn't impact the way our students are being served. And finally, and perhaps one of the more difficult decisions to make, is we are recommending the reduction of 2 elementary classrooms. When we look at our declining enrollment, we are graduating classes that approach 200, and our kindergarten class is closer to that 125. So as we see our students coming into kindergarten each year, the norm is going to become 6 sections per grade level, rather than 7 or 8 that the district was accustomed to having, or 10 in the past. It's a trend across Long Island, it's a trend in Elwood, that the graduating classes and the incoming kindergartners just don't compare. And that is the case here. So what we are looking at proposing for next year is uniformly having 6 sections of classes, K to 6. What that would mean is class sizes at kindergarten, Mrs. Hall is going to put up the slide, but will be 2021, and classes in the 5th grade will be right at about 20, 25 and a half. So those are difficult decisions. One of the savings is offset by a retirement. I announced it earlier, Ms. Lane is retiring after a long career at Harley Avenue. I know that some of you had her as a teacher, and I think that's wonderful. We will miss her. But her retirement is one of those really large savings we see in the budget. That's called losing a position by attrition. It's a retirement for a position we don't have to replace. So that is a large saving realized within the budget, salary plus benefits associated with it. That doesn't... So those are the types of reductions that make the most sense, because we're able to remove them from the budget and it has 0 impact on the students. But that's it. That's the list. I know that some members of the community might have come here tonight thinking that we were going to have all kinds of large-scale cuts and we were in crisis mode. It's simply not the case. This is a financial challenge, not a financial crisis. This is an opportunity to make targeted reductions with a scalpel, not with a chainsaw that often has to happen if you really have some true financial difficulties. We can still hope for some things. I will still hope until the state budget is finalized that we might see an increase to our $34,000 increase to our state aid. I will still hold out hope that some additional funding will come by way of the Elwood School District. We have been told by the Elwood Booster Club that they have a sizable amount of money remaining in their unallocated funds. It's about, I don't think the EDC would mind me sharing, they have about $20,000 that they're looking to set that will help offset some expense within our budget that we'll be able to allocate, will increase revenue and take on that expense. We will hope Ms. Dunkel, in her review of all our financials, has looked at our students with high-cost aid, those special education students with those high costs that I mentioned earlier. We're auditing all of those files to make sure that we received as much money back from the state as we are due. Working with Ms. Dunkel and some of our auditors, they think our number back from the state was unusually low. So we're auditing all of our documentation to see if the state has given us all of our high expense aid that we are due. We suspect they have not, which can help our revenue side a bit. And we'll take it from there. Right now, this is where we are. We feel comfortable making, we're not thrilled, but we feel comfortable making these recommendations to the board for reductions in these areas. And again, I feel very confident that the experience students have when they walk in the door next year will be remarkably like the experiences they have next year. And we're positioning ourselves as a district to be in the best possible position to face any additional financial challenges that may come our way next year, which always has to be the focus. And the board gave me permission to interact with the community present. We're very thankful that you came. We're hopeful some of you came with ideas of things that perhaps we should look to explore that we have not. We had a similar meeting with faculty and staff, and I gotta tell you, we have some very informed people, some of them are here tonight, who gave us some areas that we went back and looked at and said, you know, that's something that we should look at again, and we did. And we would love to do the same with the community. But first I'll ask if any members of the board have any questions.
Do you want Dr. Hull to provide the class?
Yeah, let's do that. Dr. Hull, if you wouldn't mind calling up your slides so the community and board can see exactly what we're talking about. Thank you.
Our goal with class size is to maintain classes that are as desirable as possible. And in many cases, our students will be experiencing the exact same size that they have this year in their class. We have monthly enrollment that we review, so we do know that students move in and students move out, so this will be adjusted as we go. When you're looking at this chart, you see here what we anticipate the enrollment will be for this grade level for the following year. Within this number, there are students who have maybe a small class placement, a different type of placement. So when we're looking at our dividend number, it might be different than here depending on children who would not be in the full-size class. So then we look at the number of sections, and as Dr. Foster said, the new norm is looking to be at 6 sections. So when we look, for example, at the experience of our children in first grade next year, this year in kindergarten, the smallest kindergarten class has 19, and the largest kindergarten class currently has 20. When they move into first grade, remaining at 6 sections, they will once again be at 20. And this is the case for many of our grade levels. Currently, our first graders, the smallest class is 19, the largest class is 22. Next year, when they move into second grade, they would be at 20 to 21. Third grade, the same thing. Currently, smallest 22, largest 23, moving into exactly 22 to 23. Our third graders are also staying in 6 sections. So here, our smallest class this year is 23, our largest is 25. That would look at 23 to 24 for next year. So when we are looking at removing a section of 4th grade, we're actually rolling up the exact number of sections from the prior year and maintaining the same class size. And that is the same case of 5th grade going into 6th. Currently, we have 25 to 26 in 5th grade. As these students move up, we anticipate 25 to 26. So once again, as though we're looking at a reduction in that grade level, it's actually rolling up the same sections and the students have the same experience. The place where we are decreasing, when we take out one section, you'll see that we're not touching 5th grade. 5th grade currently has 6 sections, but the children who are rolling into 5th grade for this 1 year were in 7 sections. They were not in 7 sections in their prior year as 3rd graders. They're in 7 sections this year as 4th grade because we were addressing some student needs related to English as a new language. 4th grade happens to be the year that has the largest number of students in the English as a new language program. It's more than double the size of some of our other grade levels. However, when we look at English as a new language, those students have very different needs. There are 5 levels of performance that the state rates students at, and they're tested annually. And what we see in the 4th grade is that of those students, 15 of them are at the highest scoring level. So we anticipate in this year that they will, many of those children will be reaching commanding, which means they have succeeded all of the levels. And we also have students in commanding who will be exiting all support. So we know that the students are doing well, that they are succeeding, and that they are making progress. And so we, as we looked at that, we were returning back to this class sizes they were in as 3rd graders. And that is why we then end up with a range of six classes, the new norm, going across the board.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Thank you for the reminder, Mrs. Freed. Any questions from the Board of Education?
Questions? Go ahead, Mrs. Marquez. We'll start there and go forward.
Are we working with an optimal classroom size for the elementary classrooms? Meaning, when we look at these numbers, would there be a number that we would hit where we would say it's tipping the scales and we would need to make an adjustment?
You know, it's interesting. I asked some elementary teachers for some perspective on that. And optimal is not a word I would use. If we had optimal class size, we'd have 15 students in every class. So the insight I was looking for was from the teaching staff telling me if they had any measurable difference between 23 and 25 students in the class, because that's really what we're talking about as a tipping point. And the feedback I received from those classroom teachers was really no. That there are some individual students that can certainly create a tipping point in the classroom. As far as overall number of students, the experiences they had really didn't have any measurable difference between having 23, 24, 25 students on their roster. Is there a tipping point that we use? I would say that we want to stay manageable. I would say that projecting the classes, as Mrs. Hall has indicated and illustrated on the slide, is where we believe we can be. But I will also share with the board that if we were to see an influx of new entrants to any specific grade level that would cause these classes to begin the year at 26 and 27, we would have to look at that. With our enrollment today, I feel comfortable projecting these classes at 6 sections per grade level. If we had any type of statistical anomaly that brings new entrants into a specific group, then we would have to make some adjustments to our program. In every budget, we allocate contingency positions. Because of the tight nature of this year's budget, we have allocated 1. However, if the enrollment changes dramatically between now and when we're getting ready to build our classes and start the year in September, and any individual grade level moves to an average of 27, 28, yes, I would have to come back and recommend an additional section and add a 7th section.
With respect to reducing the section in 4th grade, do we feel that by doing that, it would jeopardize the continued success of the students in ENL that was able to benefit possibly from a smaller class size, although they're continuing to improve? By increasing that particular grade, do you think that will get any backlash from that?
No. Responsibly, I would share with you that the services that they'll receive from their ENL teacher won't change. So I think it's that the amount of time they have with their ENL teacher when they're pulled into small groups, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, that is largely responsible for their growth and their acceleration through the ENL program. So I don't see a risk of their progress being diminished by having one less class section.
James,
This is more awkward than when we were in the library.
I know, it's really kind of look and see, and I can't do that. I think, you know, and I don't want to speak for the entire board, but I think our emphasis is on maintaining a class size that we feel is workable, and you presented, there are some where we're kind of on that point where you say, you know, if we do get those people that move into the district, and the enrollment that starts in what we have in August starts to change drastically in September. And I think we would all be committed to really making sure that, because there is that grade 5 that is really at that point that, you know, you add 6 or 7 students and now you really have to look at that. So I just, you know, want to make sure that we are committed to make sure that these class sizes are, you know, are going to enhance our student learning.
Yeah, I agree, Mrs. Weiss, that we have to monitor the enrollment very carefully. And one of the things we did is we looked at this year. We looked at where we started to compare where we are now to see if those trends were to continue, if there would be any impact on a singular grade. And I would tell you, it's kindergarten. It happens every year, where the number we begin the year with in kindergarten increases through the year. Some parents delay, you know, the decision to register their child, or they select the district in which they're going to raise their family later in the year. So the only statistically significant, forgive me, Mr. Cushy, grade level that really needed to change as the year progressed was kindergarten. but we were fortunate that when we began the year with 17 and 18 students in the class, adding 11 kindergartners from September to March brought the class size to 19 and 20. If it had been 11 fifth graders, that would have been uncomfortable. But when we looked at the plus minus, there was no other delta that was greater than 5, so less than 1 child per class moved into any one grade level, and 3 of our grade levels actually have reduced in size since the beginning of the school year.
And we keep historical data on that, and we monitor it, statistically speaking.
Statistically speaking, in a longitudinal study, it's kindergarten that tends to have the greatest variance in their enrollment. How's that, Joe? He's not even paying attention. Other questions from the Board of Education?
I have a quick question for Dr. Bosser. As far as the 6th grade, so the 5th grade going into 6th grade, I guess we're speaking about, that's the grade that students are taking enriched courses. Are we comfortable with the number of students in the courses that may be looking to excel as far as alongside the AP course? Can they work for the 6th grade when they go in?
Acceleration begins in the 8th grade.
Algebra and science, 8th grade.
8th grade is when the acceleration begins.
So we don't impact the 6th grade try to take enriched courses. Okay.
So Dr. Sapienza could have spoken to this more articulately, but I'll share with you that the 2 things that we look at with 6th grade is A, we're rolling forward the same number of sections of 6th grade next year as the 5th grade is currently in, so they're very much accustomed to having 25 or 26 classmates. And the other piece is there are some advantages to having an even number of 6th grade sections because of the teaming approach that's used instructionally. There is some instructional benefit to having 6 rather than 7 because of the way we structure the division of academic core areas amongst the teachers.
So I guess I wanted to say, and I'll come back for more questions since everyone got... Oh, Mr. Tomer, did you want to ask a question? Okay. That this is a discussion. It's not an end-all. We don't vote on accepting the budget until April. So that's why we ask people to come tonight and share their views. So although we appreciate so much the work that went into the budget, this isn't the budget adoption meeting. It's really hearing from the community, discussing, asking questions. I know so much work went into really taking a look at what's going on and making the most succinct cuts that could possibly be made. So I appreciate that, but I just wanted the community to know, or folks that are actually watching, that the budget adoption doesn't occur until April. And so that's why we opened a discussion, that's why we sent out a letter. The high school course selections and their numbers in the AP classrooms, when do we get those final numbers?
Student requests are being processed and the master schedule is under construction. The final tallies don't come for some time. This is free because students tend to change their mind after meeting with their counselors, after consulting with parents. So what more likely will happen is we will finalize staffing allocations for the high school, and then the courses will be built around that. And Mrs. Hull has been working very closely with the high school administration and our directors to make sure they're given the flexibility to build a master schedule that matches what the students' requests have been. There have been some very subtle nuances to the changes of the high school academic departments. 0.2 shift here, 0.4 reduction there. So there are no market changes to the staffing at John Glenn to accommodate those student requests.
So we won't have those numbers before the budget's adopted?
If I gave you them, they would be markedly different in September.
That I know.
That's the way the high school schedule works, and the students' choice factors heavily into that. But I can tell you that the only real difficult decisions to be made at the high school about enrollment is if you have an elective course that 32 students all want to take. Is it one class of 32, or do we have the staffing flexibility to make it 2 classes of 16? Also, because of the nuances of building the high school schedule that I mentioned, sometimes to get all the pieces to work, a class may have 30 students when another section of the same class is running with 15. And some may say, why wouldn't you have 2 equally balanced sections? But it's to accommodate the students who are looking for different strings of course study.
Right, because the school is small, some classes only run one period a day, so it wouldn't, some students can't take the class that period because they're in music. Or...
You're exactly right. There are many singletons that run at John Glenn. John Glenn has a robust course offerings guide for a small high school. And to make it all work, sometimes you do get scheduling imbalances like that, you know, to a layman overlooking the document, you say, why would you do that? But it's to make the program work for the students. But I can tell you the average class size at John Glenn will be very attractive. I know the board and community doesn't particularly like to hear average, because we can say the average class size is 21 and have a class with 32 students in it. But when we do look at the average class size at the secondary level, I think it will continue to be as attractive as it was this year.
The other question I had was about the summer program. You said that most of our costs are associated with more needs in the special education area, but we're taking away a summer program. So can you explain, if the children have more needs, where are they getting these? Is it that they have a 12-year program elsewhere?
Yeah, we're not taking away a program. It is a very rare CSD recommendation that a child needs a 12-month program. The largest majority of the students in the district that receive special education services, we provide those services within 10 months. The most profoundly handicapped students receive a 12-month program because of the fear of regression over the summer that occurs if we don't provide that. But that's a very small number of our children. So because that number is so small, it's beneficial to them to go to a full and robust program that already exists in another district rather than us creating one that may not be as conducive to their needs within our district. Is there financial savings with that? Sure. Because the transportation costs are decreased, nursing costs are decreased, support services are decreased, and we're not opening our buildings during a time where we're going to have lots of construction going on. So for this coming year, because of the number of recommendations it has, it makes sense to recommend 12-month programs for students to tuition to other neighboring districts. That may not always be the case. That's something that'll have to be reviewed annually.
I see. And then the reduction in the special ed coordinator 9 to 12 is who takes? How will that be covered? Is that with the additional guidance counselor, or what?
Well,
how is that?
Well, the other coordinator has been K to 6, and she'll now expand to K to 8, and that's something that she is comfortable with. At one point, she was K to 12. So K to 8 is certainly something that she feels can be managed. And the other responsibilities will be taken on by other members of the team. Mrs. Wilkinson will take on a good chunk of those responsibilities as our executive director. The building level psychologist will take on a responsibility. And we're also looking, as I mentioned to the board, to increase our social worker allocation. So our social worker will likely take on some portion of that responsibility. And to be candid, because of her skill set and what she has presented to our program, our director of math, science, and technology will take on some of the responsibilities that once were had by the special education secondary coordinator, just because of the unique skill set and the background that she brings to that position and the fact that she volunteered.
Okay, so really it looks like the only change in the size of the class is in the 1 grade. And the reason why you changed it last year was because the E&L students were at a lower level, and now they seem to have made a lot of progress over the years. Am I understanding that?
The data would indicate that the levels in which our E&L students are testing, our current 4th graders transitioning to 5th grade, has improved dramatically. And while 7 sections was certainly a nice benefit to have next year, I don't consider it an essential component for next year as they move on to the 5th grade.
Even given the loss of TAs that you're proposing?
I don't believe the TAs would have had an impact on those classrooms. The reductions from that building were not in those classrooms.
I see. Okay, thank you. Let's go back to the board. Ms. Marcus.
I do want to hear from people in the audience, so I'm going to ask a couple more questions. In K through, I'm looking at K through 5 with class sizes. So with K through 5, is there a certain number of students per class at which we have to contractually provide the teacher with an assistant at all, or no? As a para or a TA? Do we know that?
We're not approaching it. I want to reference the contract before giving you a number, because I don't want to confuse my former district with the Elwood School District. There is a tipping point where to meet our contractual obligations, we would have to split the class. But I'll get back to you with the exact number.
Okay. And then I was wondering if Maureen could address some of the professional development reductions that she's looked at.
Dr.
Because I do have concerns. I think everybody thinks professional development is good, right? It's good. But my concern when we're talking about costs is not just the cost of professional development programs specifically to staff, but the cost of the programs that require them to leave campus. So now we're paying substitutes, and if we have a large number of students, is the substitute as equipped to provide quality instruction in the classroom as the teacher? So I want her to discuss some evaluations that she did for professional development.
I'll start by answering the first part of your question, and Dr. Hull can certainly take the second. We did, corresponding with the reduction in professional development opportunities, also made a large-scale $10,000 reduction to our allocation for substitutes, understanding that we will have less reason to replace teachers in the classroom. From a philosophical standpoint, I'll share with you any professional development initiative that we ask our teachers to attend, or our support staff to attend, we want to make sure it has that offsetting benefit. We don't pull teachers out of the classroom unless we feel the benefit is strong enough to make up for that lost level of instruction that one receives from their regular teacher from a substitute. So we've targeted our initiatives, we use thematic initiatives, and we make sure that the feedback from those attendants is positive before we schedule. One of the largest shifts that you'll see is just the number of attendees to individual workshops. I think part of the reduction is based on when we used to send teams of teachers because of the benefit of collaboration at a workshop, we will only be able to send one. And we would hope that that person would come back and turnkey the information. It's just a different model to approach. And some of the reductions to professional development are less removing it from the budget and more so enhancing the way we use our grants to support professional development. But second half of your question, certainly Dr. Hall can respond.
So the district has a professional development committee, and part of our work on that committee is to look at the effectiveness of our training through surveys. So whenever anyone receives professional development, whether it's in district or out of district, they're required to complete a survey afterwards. And the committee takes a look at all of those results to assess the effectiveness. We know that teachers do benefit when they collaborate, when there's more than one teacher present, but also when they come back, the responsibilities of turnkeying mean that something has to be set up internally, such as a grade level meeting or department meeting, to share resources. So part of the shift is really just instructionally looking at how our principals and directors are working with our grade levels and departments to ensure we really are robust about how we turnkey information. And then using our surveys already, we already assess is something effective and should we return to that? Or sometimes there's a particular set developer that's well known in the county and that's the person that BOSIP is using all the time. We look at our teachers' evaluations of that in terms of they're asked to rate its effectiveness in when they return to the classroom and when they recommend it to others. So we are always looking at how we have to shift it. In terms of Teachers College, what we're looking at there is really fine-tuning by building. We have 3 buildings participating, and people are probably most familiar with the staff developer who comes to the school district and meets with the teachers for 2 periods, because they're here for the full day, but they're seeing 3 grade levels. So teachers are out there with the staff developer for 2 periods. But that's just part of it. Another part of it is what are called calendar days, and that's when we send teachers into Teachers College directly to have training in New York City. There's also a principal portion where they go into the city for training, and then there are summer institutes where teachers commit to a week long of commuting into Teachers College to work directly with staff developers in Manhattan. So all of those can have some trimming that would allow us to, again, reduce but not eliminate, and still move forward with our initiative and maintain our progress for our students, but definitely trim back. Is that addressing, did I miss one part of your question, Mrs. Moore?
Yeah, I just wanted to see what you had evaluated and that you had trimmed back and to explain that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Emelina? The only thing that I want to say was I think the administration did a really good job in taking everybody's perspective. I had the ability to sit in on a meeting with Dr. Bossert and the staff. And there's fluid discussion about what they see. They have boots on the ground, what can realistically be focused on to make cuts responsibly because they are the ones in the class with the students. And it was open up to all employees, and it was really neat. And I see some of maybe the questions or suggestions were actually targeted reductions in the presentation that you're given. And I think it was fair and balanced, and you know, everything has a little bit taken away, whether it's co-curricular or athletics or music. I appreciate the shift in social worker. You know, mental health is a non-negotiable for me personally, so I'm glad that we're able to retain something in there. And then also the slight reduction in the administration. So everybody is a little give and take from everybody here. You know, as the only thing I can comment on the class size is that one grade, like Mrs. Weiss said, you guys, I have faith that you guys will keep a close watch on the enrollment numbers, and really nothing has changed with respect to the class size from year to year. So I appreciate everybody's hard work and the equity in this, and that, you know, we have the audience here participating. I'm anxious to hear what the audience has to say, and most importantly, faculty and staff. It was great.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so I think rather than following the agenda, we'll just open it up to community questions or comments regarding the budget only. The presentation that we just had. This is Beth. You can come up to the microphone. If there's anyone else, you can just start lining up and...
I'd like to echo Mrs. Mamelito's sentiment. Thank you. You did a really nice scalping. I felt that too. I do have a couple of issues. I do want to clarify for everyone, Mr. Tomeo, that yes, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders do get striated enrichment beginning in 6th grade. You were right, they do. It's that 9th period that was added this year. Dr. Sapienza wasn't here to explain it, but since I have a middle schooler, I can tell you that extra period is one that they look forward to. So my guy who likes reading books gets a phenomenal period every 6 days of great books, discussion, excerpts, poetry. He loves it, and they pick the right teacher for that group. So they do get enrichment, so I guess that's what they call, I think they call it core extension, but everyone does get something extra beginning in 6th grade. So all the middle school changes as a parent, I'm really grateful for, and I'm glad that that's being kept intact. What I am concerned about is the chorus teacher losing her full-time status, is what I understand, because she's reducing hours. Okay, okay. I do think that that is going to make those lessons very large and not as successful as they currently are. We have a robust participation, even with the 0 period day and all in chorus, band, and orchestra. And I think when it comes into the day, there'll be much more participation. So I think there'll be an uptick in kids doing band and chorus, orchestra and chorus. And those, that's, I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna work. I was really not happy to hear that. And that is an increase in class sizes because those lessons are classes. So I just wanted to say that. And correct me if I didn't hear elimination of the $10,000 expenditure of the calendars not going forward. In the past, the PTAs sold the calendars, and two of the units made a decent amount of money on selling those. It was a lot of work for us, our free labor, but the money was used for cultural arts and other programs where we, at the school. So not only did the district not spend close to $10,000 printing and mailing those out, but two PTAs made a few $1,000s apiece to spend on the children. So in my mind, that's $14,000 that we could get back. So I'd like to see that down the road in the not being included in next year's budget, because that's a lot of money. And so my last thing that I wanted to say, I do think you've done a great job, and there's a lot, and I do think a lot of departments are very selfless, and it's really nice to see everyone working together. The current 5th grade is at 26. I mean, I think there's one section at 24 because somebody moved out, now another section's at 27. It's tight. As a class parent, it's tight when we come in for a party, and the indoor recesses have shown that you can ask the leadership in the building. It's tight at 27, and there's social. I'm sorry. There's things happening amongst the kids. You know, they had to have an assembly, the SRO come in. I personally believe that the tightness in the room plays into that. They're on top of each other. So I do know one class or two might be at 24, but the others are at 26, 27, and that might only get worse. And the way I understand this is, are we losing a teacher in the middle school? I know we're not going to replace the attrition at Harley, but with 6 sections of 6th grade, don't we currently have 8? Which is what, you can't answer.
No, we have 7 sections
Oh,
in 6th
7.
grade, and one of the 6th grade teachers would move to the Harley.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I wanted to ask that specific question. Anyway, good job. And again, I'm concerned about the chorus teacher. She's going to have more kids in chorus because it's during the day. And I think those lessons are important, and they're going to get ballooned, and that's not going to be good. And please consider nixing the calendar. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Bell.
The only thing I'll remind you, Mrs. Bell, is we did survey all of the districts in our region, and more than half of them don't offer vocal music lessons at all. So we looked at, again, our philosophy of reduce but don't eliminate, and the way we envision it is vocal lessons being every other week, the same group size that we currently have. If we consult with the staff and they prefer to have weekly but larger groups, that's something to entertain also. But right now, again, it's something that we think bringing music into today is definitely a positive thing. But part of that shift is a reduction in the number of lessons they'll receive or the size of the group. But that's something that we can discuss directly with the faculty. It's not something that's carved in stone. If our teacher believes that she'd rather meet more frequently with larger groups, then that's something we can entertain.
I have a question about court. I know that in the middle school you have to be in a performing group, correct? At least 1 year.
In order to meet the middle school mandate of a music credit, you have to participate in either band, orchestra, or chorus. Dr. Hull is working with Dr. Sapienza and the team to introduce perhaps other opportunities for students who are inclined to be in performances in the future. A general music type section, an electronic keyboarding, or a digital music type of class. And these are some of the electives that we had been discussing before we started to talk about reduction.
Right.
But one of the long-term goals we have for music in the middle school is to offer a music credit alternative for students who perhaps aren't interested in being not performing in an ensemble.
I see, because it seems to me, and I remember this transitioning into 6th grade, it's very difficult for the children, especially in 6th grade, to navigate lessons, to understand when they can miss math review before a test, to really, that's a lot of decision making for a sixth grader. Should I go to lessons today because they're allowed to miss a couple of them? Should I go today? Am I allowed to miss reading, or should I try to go during art or whenever? I remember that being a big deal in sixth grade. And because children in sixth grade have to do a performing music group, many of them who didn't play an instrument in Boyd wound up in chorus. So chorus wasn't really their passion. They just went to chorus because they didn't play an instrument in Boyd and they didn't feel that they could start an instrument in the middle school. So I'm wondering if the sixth graders get vocal lessons now. Are they part of that group that also gets a vocal lesson? The kids that...
Dr.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you for an answer.
I'm sorry? So they do their before school group, and then they have vocal lessons, even though they're doing it because they just have to be in. Oh, now that's different than when my kids were there.
Oh yeah, as a general, Mrs. Freed, the ensembles are outside the day, but the lessons all take place within the instructional day, and the students miss their academic courses and rotation.
I hear you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. And thank you, Mrs. Bell. Anybody else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Darlene Morgan, and I come to you as a concerned parent of the school district. I have a two-part question. My first question is, what were the key drivers that led to such a large budget deficit, and what strategies are you putting in place to make sure and help to stabilize the budget to make sure we don't run into these large deficits moving forward?
Thank you. That's an excellent question because we are looking at the budget planning as a multi-year approach. The key factors were really expenses growing beyond our revenue. Our only two forms of revenue are state aid and taxes that we collect from the local taxpayer. You're aware of the tax cap, so we are limited to that 2.56% increase. And our state aid allocation only increased by 0.27%. So while we have some anticipated increases to our expenses, the cost of healthcare increases every year, the cost of transportation increases every year. We had some unexpected large increases to our special education budget that account for a large percentage of our increase. But that's the needs of the community and the needs of our family, and that's one of our primary purposes, is to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. But when you put all the driving factors together that created the increase in our rollover budget, our increase in revenues just didn't match that. We are not receiving our fair share of state aid, not only as our district, but as our region. So we are currently lobbying and campaigning for seeing more equitable distribution of aid. But the other piece is we are capped in what we can ask the community to support. And if this conversation had been years ago, we might have been entertaining with the board, well, do we want to go to the community and ask them for 5% to meet all of our increases in expenses? And it would have been a difficult conversation for the board and the community about what percent of increase to your taxes are you willing to absorb. Now we work with the tax cap. We have learned in this district and in the region not to propose a budget that exceeds that cap. Any district has done that, as most districts that have done that have met with unsuccessful votes. And then you expose yourself to having to reduce the budget even further. So it's a matter of that our revenue sources have increased at the same rate as our expenses. What we are doing to long-term plan for that is to make sure our reserve funding is maximized, and the law only allows us to maintain 4% of our budget in reserve, but we want to stay at that 4% in the event that we have a more challenging position in the future. We want to spend down some of the reserves as the law allows, and we're doing that this year by tapping into our employees' retirement system budget. But the other piece is the more difficult one. When you lower your bottom line, which we're doing by $1.3 million, when we roll over to next year, we'll be doing it with a base that's $1.3 million less. And that's really the way that we want to maintain fiscal stability.
Okay, so there weren't maybe one particular expense that we incurred this school year that potentially led to this large deficit? Because I understand that the increase in inflation and so forth.
Yeah, there was no singular expense. I would say the greatest percentage of increase was within our special education budget, and it accounted for a 17% increase. That's unusually large, but it's reflective of the needs of the community, and it's reflective of what's happening in our region. There are obligations that the district has to make sure we're providing every student with an appropriate, free and appropriate public education. And for a student that attends school within the district, that's a $25,000 expense. For a student that we pay tuition to meet their needs, it could be a $125,000 expense. And the number of students who have that type of need associated with them in Elwood is growing. So we had a disproportionate amount of growth within that program. But it's something we need to do. They're our kids, and we need to make sure we're providing them with the education they need and deserve. So it's a non-negotiable area of growth within our budget. Thank you.
Anna Umstetter. I'm only speaking for myself as a concerned parent. I'm not representing any other organization. I'm not sure if you covered it or not. I just want to know some clarity. The class sizes for the special education classrooms that are taking Regents, will those class sizes be maintained for next year? I'm not sure if, I don't know if that was discussed.
Special education class sizes are dictated by the IEP and the ratios that we have to stay within to comply with the law. So there won't be any changes to special education class sizes in accordance with the way the IEPs are written.
No, I understand that, but I know that the program that I'm concerned with is like the 1212 program, Regents level. Right now they're at a decent class size, and I'm just worried with the shifting if the student numbers would increase in those classes, because Regents classes for those kids are extremely difficult to pass. As I don't need to tell you guys are well aware. And I'm concerned about that.
I certainly understand. And without speaking about individual students, you know the way the law works, you can't exceed 12 students.
Okay, I know, but
if it's at 5 this year, I can't tell you that it's going to be at 5 next year. I think that's what you're looking for, but I can't say that. It depends on the CSE recommendations, for each students coming up through the program.
Okay. I kind of want more clarity on the 9 to 12 kids with the reduction of that administrative person. I know you're splitting up now the work with what seems to be Ms. Wilkinson, the school psychologist, and the math curriculum person. I'm just kind of overwhelmed by it because those kids need consistency, and we have to work with people that have been with our kids and who recognize our kids. And the math curriculum person in particular,
It's going to be involved in some scheduling, not the administration of the program.
Okay, because it's just,
Feel free to use your microphone, Mrs. Wilkinson.
No, I know. I understand that.
So the changes that are taking place, Mrs. Mahoney is expanding the grades that she's going to be working with at the middle school. And in the past year or two, she has been helping out a lot in 6th grade. She's going to extend up to 8th grade. But I will also be involved making changes to what I do so that I'm helping out there as well and at the high school. The person that you referred to, the STEM coordinator, is a former special education teacher who has never left this district, has been involved in all of these conversations in relation to students, curriculum, placement. She knows all the kids, she knows their needs, and I'm thrilled that she's going to jump in and help us out. She's not going to be doing CSE meetings, but she's going to be doing other things that maybe I'm not able to do, or that the former special education coordinator isn't able to do.
I wanted that clarity because
Yeah, no, I understand. So we haven't really fleshed it out in detail, but I don't think you're going to notice the impact
impact, but I don't think it'll change,
Okay.
services.
And then with the elimination of the newest psychologist, I'm assuming that position is going, it's very upsetting because he does work with our kids and he's doing sessions with our children. And he's actually really good, so it's just a little upsetting that that's going to go because our kids need consistency. And the shifting around is upsetting.
And you may see him back in another capacity.
And, sorry, say that?
We also are impressed with his work, and I really don't want to talk about specific personnel, but we work very hard to find a role for him in the district.
Okay. All right. I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Mrs. Amstar. Anyone else?
First of all, I'm going to echo thank you for all of the...
Just want to share who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Leonard Suskin, resident here, parent here.
Oh, thank you.
And I do want to thank you for the hard work in trying to cut a couple % off the budget without hurting students. One thing that you talked about is delaying upgrades and changes to equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a concern that whatever we don't upgrade this year, we're going to have to next year, and we're kicking the can down the road a little bit?
Well, one of the things, and thank you for the question, one of the things that we have that works to our advantage is that the community approved a very large-scale capital bond. So some of the replacements and upgrades that we wanted to make to equipment will be able to be achieved through the capital bond. We just have to try to get there. So it's not a matter of we're going to ignore those expenses, it's that we're just going to try to finance it through the bond. And then there's some things that are very simple, like we have a custodial truck that has 200,000 miles and is falling apart. Eventually it needs to be replaced, but this is not the area to be able to replace it. So it's some difficult decisions like that. But as far as reductions that we made directly impacting students, I don't believe that we'll see that impact.
Okay, thank you. Also, if I may, when you talked about the 9-period day, and this is perhaps a curriculum discussion and not a budget discussion, you talked about taking away the world language class, and there's going to be a technology class in its place.
Yeah, we have to look at, it's fine, it is a curriculum question, but there was a reduction from the budget of the staffing assigned to teach world languages. World languages was just introduced this year as an exploratory at the 6th grade level. And we thought it was good to introduce students to all the different global languages as part of the 6th grade curriculum. But when we brought music in, that takes up a period of instruction every day. So we had to look at how do we meet the middle school requirements, mandates that exist. So there are mandates for technology that we have to make sure that we are in keeping with. So technology replacing the world language exploration is a requirement that they have in their middle school program, and then the students will simply begin their language exploration in 7th grade.
Okay, so I guess I'll write to my governor and congressperson rather than you on that one. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none.
Can I ask you questions?
You may.
The second half of the letter indicated if anyone had an area of the budget to which we should be focused that you think we may have overlooked.
Potential savings.
I'm all ears. Please.
Here, we got one from Mrs. Bell. Oh, Mr. Suskin.
I'm sorry. I'm still Leonard Suskin. Well, I don't know if this is a place that we can cut, but we did increase security personnel across the schools.
We did.
At the time, I felt that that was an understandable but reactive response to a serious tragedy elsewhere. Is that something that we can revisit and see if those choices that we made during a very emotional time are appropriate, are the best expenditure of resources?
Yes, we review it every day, and we look to make sure that the staffing that we have in place is being utilized effectively. is necessary, that we are not overstaffed in our area. Some of the reductions we made of supervisory codes is in response to the fact that we have additional security guards. So we need less chaperones and supervisors for athletic events and things like that. So we have decreased some supervisory expenses. But to be candid, I don't believe our increases to security were reactive. I think they were calculated. I think that we did a good deal of time evaluating our program. We did a full security audit. We took the recommendation of an outside third party who came in and reviewed all of our resources, and we followed through with the recommendations they made. I don't feel that we're overstaffed for security. I think we'll look at how we use our security very closely. And if we find that we have an overabundance of either staff or time that we allocate them, we will reduce them. We are fortunate that our security guards are not district employees. We contract with a third party, Wisdom Security. They're all Wisdom employees. So if any time during next year we feel we have overstaffed or have too many hours scheduled, we can contract as we see fit. So while it is a fixed figure in the budget, if we find that we can make reductions that will have savings associated, then we'll have the flexibility to do that.
Thank you.
Sure. I heard your suggestions as well. I know, who needs a superintendent? I know what you saying.
Oh, no. I would like to second Mr. Suskin's comments about the security, and I do know there's an appearance to a lot of the parents that I know we've talked about this, I've told building principals, I'm like, so-and-so's just sitting there. There is an appearance of an overstaffing of security guards, and what Mr. Suskin said is how I perceive things to be exactly what he said. It was maybe calculated, but there's a lot of sitting around. And then when we're talking about cutting important things and teachers or this and that or a club, all of it has been very strategic, and I do think it's been done with a lot of thought. But this, I wasn't going to bring it up, but since Leonard did bring it up, is something that a large part of the community does feel and see. So maybe reevaluating that department, and that department doing a little trimming like other departments have selflessly done, would be something to make them do. And the other thing I forgot to ask earlier, I didn't quite understand when you talked about AP classes, what would be done there. You're assessing like enrollment and then cutting some, or no? Did I not understand that right?
I don't anticipate
to the offerings, right? Okay, good. So I just want to second what Mr. Suskin said, and I do think that department should look to trim like everyone else did.
Can I make a comment about the safety of the security guards? This may not be a popular comment, but we have to remember that we have only two in each building. So the idea is that one is at the front and one is free then to circulate around the building. It's not that many people, and truly, we kind of all want them to just be sitting around. I mean, we don't want them to be sitting around. We want them to be fruitful in their job. But they're there in case they don't have to sit around, heaven forbid, right? So, if we couldn't tackle something from two sides, they're there so that if something occurred, we would have two people to tackle it from two sides. If one goes down, there's one more. It's really dark to talk about it, but in a lot of ways, we don't have that, so that we're dealing with a normal, happy day in Elwood. I think we're blessed to have them kind of sit around. And we have given feedback. Personally, I know other members of the board, I know parents and community members, and we have made changes to specific security guards. So continue to give that feedback, because we do want the best from the crop that we can choose from. But part of their job, unless there's an absolute utter emergency, is to kind of just be there.
The way that the recommendation read is visible deterrent. important to have visible deterrents in each building, and the thought is if someone is looking to do harm, they're less likely to do so if they see personnel there to stop them than if they come to a building and don't see that. This is correct, and that the primary role of one of our guards is to just be at the front door. So yeah, they would be sitting and monitoring all the video cameras that we've installed. My goodness, the number of video cameras we've installed, and monitoring everything taking place there. And the role of the other guard is to circulate throughout the campus. I will not be shy of the fact that we had some guards not meet with expectations. It was a little too much sitting around and not being as attentive as we wanted to be. We replaced them. That's the other benefit of working with an outside third-party agency. If we're not happy with the performance of any specific guard, we can ask them to leave at any time, and we have. And we're far more comfortable with some of the guards we have now than we had. But again, sometimes memories fade, and I have to tell you that I am so thankful that there has never been an act of violence on a school campus in our region. But I would guess, if there was, no one would ask me to consider using our security patrol. So I'm just going to be comfortable with the staffing levels we have now, but seek to make sure that our guards are performing their jobs to the best of their abilities.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you all very much for participating. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the hard work that all of your staff put in to present these productions. Okay, I'm going to ask Mrs. Marcus to speak about donations that are so generously being offered this evening.
Yes, we would like to accept and first we're going to thank the for $5,240 to support the funding of the mindfulness room at EMS. We also want to thank the Booster Club for donating $2,000 to support the following clubs for the early spring session of EDC clubs. We have Harley World Language, that's a new one, the Boyd Makerspace Club, and the Boyd Love Your Selfie Club. So we're thankful for that. And also another $8,200 from the Booster Club to support the purchase of projectors to be used in classrooms throughout the district. We also want to thank an individual, Mr. Michael McNamara, for donating a MakerBot replicator and a 3D printer. So those two items have an estimated value of $2,800, so thank you to Mr. McNamara. And then our third benefactor would be the Elwood Elwood Education Endowment, donating $36,372.90 to fund the 2018-2019 grant program awards. So we're thankful to Mr. McNamara, his organizations, and all the families and community members that support the organizations, whether through fundraisers or through participating in the programs like the Booster Clubs. So thank you.
So very generous. So we appreciate them, especially in times like these. I believe we will be honoring the grant recipients next meeting.
Yep. Yeah. We wanted to make sure you accepted the donation before we recognize the individuals.
So can I have a motion to accept the donations on Mrs. Mamalito, second by Mrs. Chris, all in favor? 5-0. And thank you again.
Discussion.
There is a discussion item regarding a donation.
Okay, this is a little unique in that the board received a packet proposed by the Elwood Booster Club, chaired by Mr. Scott, who brought forward a suggestion for a fundraiser to the administration and through the avenue of the facilities committee. It's actually been discussed for the last several months. It's a wonderful fundraiser where the Booster Club seeks to sell paving stones that members of the community can inscribe in the manner they see fit, whether it's donated by or in memory of, or things of that nature. And it would be used to construct a paver stone walkway from the sidewalk to the varsity baseball field. But because of that, before I specifically gave the green light for the fundraising to begin occurring, which they are set and ready to do, I wanted a vote, a consensus from the board that this is something that you would like to see. When a donation is going to change the physical structure of one of our buildings or our grounds, I feel the board should either give thumbs up or thumbs down before the initiative takes place. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of time to sell the items and then install the items and put them in place, and it's something that will be permanent in nature. So before giving the Booster Club and Mr. Lindquist the green light to begin their fundraising initiatives, I just wanted to make sure the board was familiar with the proposal, which was included in that PowerPoint that was distributed, and that you were comfortable with the Booster Club moving forward with their fundraising and to eventually donate a paver walkway. You would accept the donation at the time, but I don't want them wasting time or resources if it's not something the board is inclined to support.
Oh, I had a question about it.
Sure.
Even though it's 11 p.m. Oh, okay. You know, once this walkway is installed, will this be our installation, or will EBC, do all the installation, or will we be using like John McDonald to oversee and things like that? How will the actual process be?
The installation.
Okay.
So they would work with contractors to donate either their time or pay the contractors to do the work. But it would have to be under the supervision of Mr. McDonald and his team to make sure it was being done correctly and to code.
Would we have any legal indemnification if it's installed by a separate company and not us?
I am certain that Mr. McDonald will make sure that any vendor who's on our property is properly licensed and insured. But just so the board understands, like any other donation, once we take ownership of it, it becomes our responsibility. So if we accept the donation of a walkway, is our district liability. But much like when you just accepted a bot-making 3D printer, if a child's hand gets stuck in it, it's a district liability. We own the item, and we own the item, and we own any associated liabilities once we accept a donation.
What would be done with this would be if there's any simultaneous or slated work to be done, bond work, that it would be copacetic. We would do it in conjunction. It would just be a separate thought.
There's no conflict with any of the scheduled work of the bond, and we wouldn't permit it if it was.
So we've done something like this before in the school courtyard. The student council did a fundraiser for that whole patio. So yeah, we've done something like that before. So yeah. Anybody else?
I just want to say that this fundraiser, Dr. Bosher said, wasn't something that just came out of thin air and just appeared before the facilities committee quite some time. So Lick was put a lot of effort into it, and every time he came forward, we kind of pushed it back. He brought more information, and in our unique time for the tax cap and other deficits and things that were going on, I think it's wonderful that there's unique ideas going on that try to backfill programs, and the EBC does, and the EE does, and we now have another component of something that's going to benefit the district and the students, and in this case it would be probably most likely athletics, but it's something, and every little bit helps. So when the community puts their thinking caps on, sometimes it helps benefit some additional revenue and helps the program. So it can, as it was brought forward in the facilities committee, if this works and works well, there's other opportunities for other fundraisers to help those programs, going forward. So
So I'm taking that as a nod.
that was my nod, yes.
Yes. Okay. So the nods.
Okay. I will make sure that we reach out to the EBC and Mr. Lindquist, let them know the board has given the green light to move forward with the fundraising initiative.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
We are up up to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is? Motion by Mr. Tamio, second by Mrs. Mamalito. Questions or comments? I have one comment.
I was going to comment after the vote.
Oh, okay, go ahead. You can comment. Yeah? Okay. Let's vote first then. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. All in favor? 5-0. Okay, Dr. Gosser. Go ahead. Oh, we just voted on the tenure of Dr. Hull, so congratulations. Such a valued member of our team and so well deserved. Your hard work is so appreciated, and we look forward to working with you for many, many years to come. Congratulations. Dr. Gosser.
I would like to thank the Board of Education for supporting the recommendation for Dr. Hull. While statutorily, if an employee is on a probationary term for 4 years, the board is required to take action to either separate or tenure the individual. The board took action tonight to grant Dr. Hall tenure after 2 years and 7 months in her position as assistant superintendent, and made it effective immediately, by the way, Dr. Hall. So when you show up tomorrow, you're tenured. Congratulations. And I think that demonstrates the support that the board, and certainly I, have for your work. I think that you have come in and met every expectation that I had for you, and clearly the board and community has had for you as well. I think your fingerprints are already, in your short period of time, all over the instructional program we have here, K-12. I think you are a tremendously respected member of the team by parents, community. Your relationships with students, with faculty, and staff is extraordinary. I think you speak to listen. I think you have established trust. I think you've established a wonderful rapport. And I think that your contributions to the district have been felt and will be felt for a lengthy period of time. So the security of tenure, I think, is a demonstration to the community that your vision and your leadership is something that this community will enjoy for a long period of time. And as the person who gets to work most closely with you, I will just share how much I appreciate all of your contributions, all of your hard work, and all of your dedication. So much of your work takes place behind the scenes, but has such a direct impact on what happens in the classroom each day. Thank you for making me look really good when recommending you to the board. And thank you for all of your efforts on behalf of the students of Elwood. Congratulations.
Congratulations. We talk a lot about culture change, Dr. Hull, and I think you've been a big part of culture change, really encouraging people to be their best every day. So we appreciate it.
On behalf of myself and the Board of Education,
Interestingly, for the community members still present, the only position in the school district from an instructional standpoint does not enjoy the benefit of tenure as superintendent of schools. So if you care to petition the Commission of Education to change that,
we'll be all over that
tomorrow morning. No 10. Oh, there was one other item under the personnel agenda that I think would be of interest to the community present. There is, excuse me.
Dr. Hull, the floor is yours.
I just want to express my deep appreciation and gratitude. It's an honor to work in Elwood. It's an extraordinary community of students and families and staff. And working for you is really a privilege. And I just want to let you know how very much this means to me. And I will continue to work very hard for Elwood. It's an incredible place. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will share that I had planned to take Dr. Hall out. That ain't happening. perhaps egg sandwich
Maybe on
in
a
the morning or
Friday.
something, I don't know. There was
You
one,
can do chamomile tea afterwards.
there was,
Seriously.
there was one other personnel action to bring the community's attention to. The board approved tonight a contract with Mr. Pat Scarola. Unfortunately, requires a procedure, as we informed the parents of Boyd, and that will have her out for a bit of a period of time, at least 6 weeks, perhaps longer, in recovery. So we were very pleased to have a resident expert to fill her seat in her absence, and we're very happy to welcome back to the position of interim principal of Boyd while Dr. Toscano is home recovering. And I'm sure they will work closely together, and things will go splendidly for our students, faculty, and staff. But in case he's watching from Florida tomorrow morning, congratulations and welcome back, Mr. Scarola.
Okay. So, given the late nature of the meeting tonight, do you want to postpone these first read, or?
It's completely up to the board. I bring forward these policies for first reading with the approval of myself. Mrs. Weiss and Mrs. Marcus spent significant time reviewing these policies with me. We actually pulled the policy for the next meeting that I believe required the most discussion. So the policies brought forward tonight are really minor changes as recommended by
we're going to do the first read of these policies, but just so the public knows, if you're not following along with an agenda. The first one is School District Officer and Employee Code of Ethics. Not a huge difference in that, right? Does the Policy Committee want to make any comments?
Most, if not all, of the revisions to the policy or the adoption of the policy is directly taken from NYSBA and their legal counsel, who evaluates each policy to make sure it's in compliance with current regulation and law. So the changes to these policies brought forward were very minor. And the opportunity to review them, but certainly would have additional time before they are adopted in case there are any questions or need for discussion.
The second policy for review is a review of executive sessions and the rules following that. Not major changes. It doesn't look like
guidance with NYSBA.
Okay, right, exactly. Notice of meetings, also NYSBA. Graduation requirements, these are state mandated.
Yep, it's to be in compliance with changes made by the state and new pathways.
All these are state regulations requiring regarding graduation, correct? Okay, so that's the first reading. Any questions or comments regarding the first read of these policies? Okay, seeing none.
And thank you for the work of the policy committee with me.
Okay, and they're available online for the public to review prior to adoption of these at the next meeting. Can I have a motion to accept them as a first reading? Mrs. Mamalito, second by Mrs. Weiss, all in favor? 5-0. Okay, we are up to second resident remarks. Does anyone plan to get up and make a second resident remark before I have to read this whole thing? Okay, they don't, so can I have a motion? Thank you so much for sticking out. Wow, it's impressive. 11 o'clock and there's still people here. We really appreciate everybody showing up tonight. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Mamalita, second by Mr. Tamio. All in favor, 5-0.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.